Hey, what's up, folks? How's everybody doing? I am in the middle of listening to my free audiobook I downloaded at audibletrial.com/WiseGuyRadio, and that's WYZGUI radio. The reason I'm saying this is because if you want to be a part of our book club that we're doing, which is our audio book club, why not go to and download your free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com, where they have over 180,000 plus publications, magazines, books, all kind of good stuff. And figure since you guys are listening to this podcast, you obviously listen to downloadable audio on your phones or iPads or computers, and why not get a free book and also then continue to listen to audiobooks with audible.com. They are a great company. They are very easy to use for, and the interface on the app on the phone is actually quite simple, which I love a lot. One of my favorite things about doing this audiobook club is that it's not only giving me insight into books that I've covered already myself, but it gives me a chance to really share with you guys books that we're covering. And books that I really feel as we build up to the point to where we get to our I'm not going to say final book because I plan on doing this podcast for the next 100 years. But really think about, we're going to be doing probably 6 books a year. And for those of that don't have time to really sit down and write a book, to sit down and read a book, I should say. A lot of us hardly have time to blow a glass, much less write a book. It gives you a chance to really cover a book and get some good insight and information while you're working on the torch or commuting to an order that you're selling or just on a drive cross country or what have you. It really gives you a good insight into the books, and especially when the authors themselves are narrating. Whether it's a fiction or nonfiction, whether it's business or just for fun, definitely go to audibletrial.com/WiseGuyRadio and download your free 30-day trial, and then you get your free audiobook. Go to audibletrial.com, audibletrial.com/WiseGuyRadio, audibletrial.com/WiseGuyRadio, and that's audibletrial.com/WYZGUYRadio.com. This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. Hey, what is going on, all you crazy-ass people out there? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 50. Wow, episode 50. Holy shit, I can't believe it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today and coming on board with this episode number 50. It's a milestone for myself as we get to each of these bigger, rounder numbers. It's just completely mind-blowing how we've already reached episode 50. 10,000 downloads plus. Oh, you guys are amazing, so thank you so much for tuning in. Today's guest on our show is Josh Bailey. He's a glass artist out of the Midwest. He's been behind the torch for 10 plus years, and him and I get into a very fun, long-winded, all-over-the-place conversation. We discuss everything from his origins to why we feel we are very similar to a featured dancer at a strip club. It's kind of funny, interesting kind of parallels, but we get into that conversation amongst other things. And before I go any further, I want to start off by sharing some reviews with you guys. And thank you to everybody who has left a review or any kind of star review in a sense, not even just written something, but also just left me some stars. By doing this on iTunes or Stitcher, whichever you guys listen to the show on, it helps to expose the show and gives it more in their analytics bullshit that they do out there in the computer world. It helps get the show exposed more and ranks it up there a little higher in the podcast ranks of those particular hosts, which then gives the show more exposure and more listens and gives our community and the glass industry in general more exposure as well. But I wanted to thank you, everybody out there who has left a review, and I wanted to read a couple in particular that I thought was pretty awesome. we got one here from goes by Nikki Page Lee 123. Nikki Page Lee 123 says, "I really enjoy learning about new things and had not thought about all that goes into glass. What a great insight into the passion, artistry, and business of this medium. Worth a listen to expand your world." And that was a 5-star review, so thank you. Sean Walsh 1994 gave me a 5-star review also and says, "The show is awesome for the glass community. Can't thank you enough." No, the recent one we had was from Hormuth CC. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that properly. They gave me a 5-star review, and this one says, "I'm loving this podcast as a co-owner of a glass company, in parentheses, not a glass blower. I have learned a ton already. I love learning how other artists run their shops. I like Jason's tips on yoga, massage, setting systems, etc. This is great information for everyone. Jason is truly opening up his life for the better of the glass community. It's risky and it's good. Thank you for putting yourself out there. Too few people talk about creating a lifestyle and are just slaves to their work. You can be an artist, business owner, etc., and have a family life. Be at your kids' soccer games, eat dinner at home, make time for meditation, reading, vacations, exercise, and be successful. Together we can change the paradigm and the definition of success." And Hormuth CC gave me a 5-star review also. Got another one here by Adam, ADDEMK. Left a 5-star review. Says, "As someone fascinated by glass art industries, this podcast gives some information and insight only gained by being around an experienced glassblower. I've never been behind a torch, but I've never felt the fire of desire more present than when listening to this podcast." Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you again, everybody, for all the reviews, 5 stars. And the more you guys bring me reviews, the more I will be reading these. Also, for those out there who have subscribed to to our newsletter, this coming up next week, I have a little special thing. Thank you for all of you who have subscribed. And not subscribe, but left a review. Subscribe too, but mainly for those who have left a review. Just pay attention to next week's newsletter. If you have not subscribed to it, go ahead and subscribe, because I have a little thank you gift I will be giving away to all of those out there who are leaving reviews and what have you on the show. Those internationally who have left reviews, I'm still trying to find how to find those reviews as well, because I definitely want to cover all the countries and all you guys out there who have left comments and reviews. So this little thank you I'll be doing and talking about next week will only be visible through our newsletter, which you can, again, just go to wiseguyradio.com, go to the bottom of the page where it says join the fam, and just put your name and address and then whatever it asks you to do in there, and confirm your email, and you'll then be subscribed to our newsletter. And then you'll find out next week how to go about getting a little thank you from me for leaving a review. If you want to leave a review now, you can, and I will just keep track of that. The best thing you can do, though, is just subscribe to the newsletter. I will have all of the instructions and what you can do on there, and then you'll find out how to get your free gift. So thank you so much. Other than that, this kind of a show has been kind of off schedule. I know in the world of podcasting, I could say it's Wednesday, and you guys are listening to this on a Monday or a Tuesday, so it doesn't really matter necessarily, but I am trying to get on track, just trying to keep things going here. Been super busy with life and working and keeping orders in and, kind of expanding my horizons and stuff. But again, thank you guys for tuning in. Episode 50. Woohoo! I can't freaking believe it. God. Oh, shit. So I guess I'm just going to let you guys go here with that. And thank you so much again for all the reviews and the love and the feedback. Don't forget again to go to wiseguyradio.com, subscribe to our newsletter. Also, don't forget to check out our newest sponsor of the Wise Guy Radio Show, which is Green Flash Glass. They are a business-to-business business. So if you are a retail store and you're looking for some fresh new glass, definitely hit those guys up. Their website has their full catalog on there. Just contact for pricing. If you are a customer or enthusiast and you go to their site and you see what they have and you like it, definitely contact your local smoke shops and ask them to carry Green Flash. They're a mom-and-pop, small team, Florida-based company that creates a really super high-end, very affordable water pipe product line, and amongst other things. So check them guys out. They are amazing. You guys all rock out there in the world of listening to this and or also creating this glass. Whether you're on a furnace or making beads or fusing or slumping or doing stained glass, whatever it is, just keep that passion and that fire going. And we will catch you guys next time on the Wise Guy Radio Show, which will be episode 51. In the meantime, enjoy this crazy, all over the place, wackadoodle interview chat I have with none other than Josh Bailey. Y'all take care. Love you guys so much. Big hugs from Florida. Peace. What is happening, Josh? How you doing, dude?
Oh, pretty good, man. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Another beautiful day in paradise here in Florida. And
yeah,
it's been good trying to chit-chat with you and make our schedule work here to get you on the show. So I'm happy we finally got this working out here to get you on the show, man. So welcome.
Yeah, it's definitely, life has been pretty hectic recently, but, you make it happen,
Yeah, exactly.
Got no other choice, right?
Yeah, that's all we can do, man. So, so before we get into the whole kind of ranting and raving and sidetracking and black holes, let's get focused here and figure out your background, and if you want to tell us a little bit of your history and how you got started, who taught you, if you learned from anybody, and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, I basically, what ended up happening was I've been doing it for about 12 years, and so I came into the industry right before Operation Pipe Dreams, so that was it was kind of an interesting time, I guess, to get your feet wet in the industry.
Yeah.
It was definitely one of those things where even before, you had to know somebody in order to get into the life, and even then it was whether or not they were willing to take the time to basically teach you. And there wasn't necessarily set classes, there weren't, at this point at least, you could take scientific classes, at any college, but there were definitely, they used to have signs up in a lot of the art studios that I had been in when I was in my infancy days of pipe making, where they would literally have a sign on the wall that said, you push a bowl, you take a stroll, and it was, and it was a real serious rule. There were, they were just, it was kind of the same thing as far as pipe making went. You could take certain aspects of the industry that you would see other people do in the art industry, and you could take them and engineer them into the pipe world, but you basically had to use your own ingenuity to, transfer over the techniques at that time. But yeah, getting off the track. So basically what happened was, I was 18, found out after I graduated high school, that I was actually really sick, and I had a musculoskeletal disease, and so turned out that the full ride scholarship that I had gotten to college, I wasn't going to be able to fulfill the requirements. So they yanked my National Merit Scholarship, and after that happened, it kind of threw me for a loop, and for about a year and a half, I just kind of wandered. And wasn't really sure of what I was going to do, because, everything that I had geared my life towards and everything that I had basically done up until that point, I was getting told wasn't going to happen, so,
yeah.
And it was also true at the same time that because we were finding out why I was sick, we were getting my health issues under control, and it was all just a big kind of battle. It took a lot of time, but so basically what ended up happening was my brother, Pat Jones, at this point, had worked his way into the one of the local smoke shops in Tucson, and he had got the job in the back doing prep work because we knew a guy. And basically one day at dinner we were sitting there, and he looked over and he was like, well, I talked to the guys at the shop, and as long as you use my equipment and my materials, they're willing to let you come in.
Nice.
And it was really, really, and it really was at that time, because, my brother, he was still technically in his first year as well. So, he wasn't in any sort of shape to take on an apprentice. So basically what they were saying was, you guys come in and Siamese twin it, and we'll teach you both at the same time.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
It was. I really lucked out. And then basically right after that happened, and at about the same time, they brought in Micah Blatt, who is a Fathead Flash, and they brought in Micah from, I believe he was in Atlanta at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But Micah had, I think, 8 years under his belt, and he basically came to Tucson to be the foreman of basically the shop in the back of the smoke shop. Because at that time, the owner of the smoke shop was trying to get a tube company up and running, and which he eventually did, but it kind of fizzled out. But that was always due more so to poor management, as opposed to anything that any of the glass blowers ever did.
Yeah.
But so what happened was Micah basically came to the shop, and at that point, he had some training from some pretty big name guys, as well as basically taught himself, through the rigmarole of, probably a lot of which was, probably trial and error at that time. And, he came in and he had some pretty solid lines, and he basically taught us how to, how to get our feet wet. And at the time, I remember the first 3 or 4 months, the first things that you did, not including, shop bitch chores, as far as like sweeping up and, doing shit like that, cleaning people's benches, but you would basically, I would go around and take all the, the little tiny baby ass pieces of 12-7 that would get knocked on the floor, or, people would just drop in their, strapping. And, for the first 4 months, my job was you would take, pieces of 12-7 and you would basically put them back together and make a big fucking tube out of them. And until you could do that and get it to the point where you could take the tubes and roll them across the table and they were flat, or they had a good spin to it.
Yep.
You basically didn't move on. And then even after that, you basically moved on to doing other silver fume chillums.
Hell yeah.
Where you would, you'd silver fume them on the outside, and you do a restriction, you pop a hole, open it up, flare it out, you rip it off, open up the mouthpiece, and boom, you're done. And it, one of the good things of, a foundation of the production was it really teaches you, through repetition. And it's how I always found is, how you get better at things.
Yeah, for sure, dude. That when I teach, like that's like the very first day. Well, I shouldn't say first day, but the first, I guess, hour or so, because like the classes I teach are 9-hour classes, like 3-hour segments. But that's the very first thing, man. I've got like buckets of scrap glass I've been holding on to forever, and that's what I do. I use the scraps. I say, okay, piece these together, and then piece these together, and see if they're level. And then once you learn that, because you get to really learn the process of melting the glass and your torch and your heat base and how to get things on center and lined up and even, and then you go from there with it, whether you're starting off using tubing or solid work. I started off with solid with everybody, and then you graduate to the tube. But that's awesome that you got that foundation, because it's so crucial to have a foundation instead of just jumping in fucking head first. You got to like put your diaper on and crawl a little bit first, and really figure that shit out and crap your pants a couple times,
Yeah, and dude, I mean, trust me, we've all been there, man. Like, I've been really excited before, too. You see something, and you're just like, damn, I want to make that. And, you go in the next day, and you fail. And then you realize why you don't make that, and you realize, why the other person has been able to make that. It's because they do have that foundation. Glass blowing, it's unfortunate, and I'm sure you deal with this way more than the average glass blower, because you're on stage in front of people so much, is unfortunately our industry has a really deceiving way of looking easy at first.
Oh yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people look at what we do for a living and say, well, it looks like I could do that. Or, they say, so basically what you need to do is you get used to the heat, and after you get used to the heat, everything else is really just a piece of cake.
Right. Yeah. I remember years, friends would come over like, oh, I could do that. I'm like, okay, fucker. I turn my torch off, turn everything off, put my glass in the kiln, and say, okay, light my torch. And if you can light the torch, then we can go from there.
Mm-hmm. No, I've done the same thing. I've done the same thing. I do shit. I've got the ass before and handed somebody the piece I was working on and said, dude, right on, finish it because I want to go take a break. I'm hungry.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like, damn, dude, I'm glad you told me that because I've been at this bitch for like 6 hours.
Yep.
You know, but yeah, it's just, it's the foundation is important because, you know, it's like we talked about before. Otherwise, what happens is, you know, you're building a house on sand.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, somebody will ask you to do something that you're not capable of doing. And not only is that embarrassing, but it really shouldn't happen. I mean, if you're making rigs and somebody looks at you and says, well, that's awesome. Can you do me a favor? And, you know, can you crank me out like just a real quick spoon? And you don't know how,
yep.
Or, you know, you try it and you fail. I mean, it's going to just to save yourself, you know, like just the embarrassment, I would think, you know, you would want to be able to look at somebody and be like, yeah, dude, no problem. You know, just give me a couple seconds, finish this up, and we'll whip one of those out real quick.
Yeah, I wonder,
you know, but
it's funny. But go on, I'm sorry.
You know, but and there's a lot of techniques, too, that I think that are no longer really, like, ultra popular. There's a few people I can think of. Like, one of the really, really popular techniques that I remember when I first started was like a squish pattern. And some of the only variations that I can think of, like some of the only people that I can think of that do it, even a variation of the squish pattern, is like, you know, Winston Murdoch. And he's really, to tell you the truth, he's probably one of the only ones I can think of right off the top of my head that even do a variation. You know, and that used to be a really, really common technique that you would see, you know, because you would basically, you know, you start off with the same tech that you would for a wrap and rake, and, you know, like you lay out your lines, and instead of doing a wrap and rake, you know, and you know, striking the color, you know, you lay down your lines, and then you do your squish in between, and you're pushing out the air bubbles when you do it. But, you know, something tells me that it's not, because you don't see it very often, it's probably not being practiced very often.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, there's benefits to all techniques. You know, I really can't think of any technique that there wouldn't be some benefit to learning.
Yeah,
you know, and
I agree.
And that's one of the reasons why I think, so, you know, again, kind of getting off subject, but getting back to it, you know, I didn't do a heady piece of work, or, you know, I didn't even try something, you know, crazy or extraordinary until I had probably been on the torch for like a good 6 years. You know, because for multiple reasons. For one, because there wasn't just necessarily a market for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and two, you know, there was a time where to tell somebody, listen, you know, you need to spend like 2 or 3 or 4 days on prep, and then you're going to spend another 3 to 4 days on construction. So at the end of it, you're looking at having a week's worth of work in, just in time, not necessarily also in materials. To make that jump is scary as hell.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree.
Because reality is, you're probably going to fail a lot.
Yep.
You know, a lot. Hopefully you won't fail as much because, you know, hopefully when you get to that point, you'll have a good solid foundation as far as construction and overall technique.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still going to fail because it's going to be something new. You know, you're going to, especially when you first start, you know, quote unquote, like really, you know, what one would call heady work. And that's another thing too. I think that the definition of heady work is kind of getting lost. I think it's kind of just a real popular buzzword, you know, right now.
Oh yeah, it's like the term great. Like the word great has been so overused that it's really lost its meaning. You know, like there's a huge difference between good and great. And,
right.
You know, and it ever since that epic word started being used a lot, it kind of like fucked it up for everybody.
Yeah, it really does because, and that's the other thing too. I think that, you know, there's a real changing of the guard, so to speak, too, because whereas you used to, and maybe this just comes from being at it for longer, and learning to be more, learning or going back to being humble, because I went through my period of time where I was like, yeah, I'm a glass blower, yeah, because especially when we started, because it used to be an uncommon thing,
Mm-hmm.
Where people would look at you and be like, well, what's that? Or you would say you're a lamp worker, and they would assume that you made lamps.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it just, yeah, I mean, you having a little old lady come across the street bringing you a Tiffany lamp, and she's like, well, I just need you to fix this. And you're like, well, man, that's not what I do for a living.
Yeah, exactly.
I think something was lost in translation,
Yeah.
but, and one of the things that I think happens, is, oh shit, man, I'm losing my place because I'm jumping all over the place. But, one of the things that I think that that happens is that, no, seriously, you're going to have to cut this out. I totally forgot what the fuck I was talking about. I literally just had a brain fart, man.
We're talking about the foundation and the importance of learning it.
Oh, shit. Okay. Safety brakes. There is a risk to safety brakes as well.
Yes.
This is not what you want to do during a business meeting or an online interview.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but you got to have the foundation, because if you don't, and it's like you said, that word, it became a real buzzword, because, when we started, I guess you waited for somebody else to come up to you and say, hey, man, that work is really spot on. You can probably move on to the next level. Or at least I remember it happening that way more so when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just the delusions of, getting older and romanticizing about your youth. I don't know. But it definitely, and you should be your own worst critic. That's another thing I don't think you see enough of in our industry.
No, I don't think so. And I think that's part of one of the issues with social media. Is you have a lot of guys and girls out there that's just get started, and they're learning their stuff, and they're like putting their pictures out there, and their friends are pushing them and saying, hey, this stuff's fucking awesome, but they're not giving them any kind of critical, thought of what, they could do differently to make it better, and then they start charging these crazy prices for stuff like, and I'm not going to say it's not worth it, because it's only worth what someone's going to pay for it, but in the reality of it, they get this false, sense of where they're at in their life as a glass artist. When really they should be giving that shit away. They shouldn't be charging the fees that they're charging for it.
Oh fuck, man! Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. Like I can't tell you how many pieces I gave away in my first 2 years of glass.
Yeah.
Probably I guarantee you the majority. I guarantee you the majority of the pieces I ever made in the first 2 years of me blowing glass, the majority went to people as gifts, as opposed to ever wound up for sale anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think you're right, because, and it's good, and I'm not saying that kind of, positive, like, feedback isn't good, because you do need that from, your loved ones.
Oh, yeah, it's important.
But I think, I think one of the benefits of working in a shop as opposed to in your garage at first, is when you're working in a shop, or you're working under a foreman, or, you're working under something that's a little more structured, not just you learning in your own environment, at your own pace, at your own time. I think what gets lost on a lot of people is where you would be playing and learning. I mean, you're learning at the same time, but essentially what you're doing is you're playing with the materials.
Yep.
Because you're trying to figure out what they can do, you're learning at the same time. And whereas you would have somebody in a shop setting come up to you and say, hey, man, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, quit fucking around, you got to get back to work.
Yep.
You can do whatever the fuck you want when you're in your own environment, because it is your dime, it is your dollar, it's up to you, I mean, and one of the things also I think that's lost when you're in a shop environment as opposed to a garage environment is you might get done with a piece and be so proud because you're like, oh, fuck, man, I got through the process. I didn't actually lose the piece. And you get it done, and let's say you're at the stage and you're picking it up with either your tongs or your hot fingers or, your hot pad, and you're getting ready to put it in the count. And either one of your cohorts, like one of your coworkers or the shop foreman walks by and goes, damn, that's a piece of shit.
Yep.
And just keeps walking.
Yep.
and there goes your whole morale boost.
Yeah,
right down the toilet.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, man, because like now that I have a studio now with my brother and his friend Eli, who's now a friend of mine, and my buddy Chad, and like Chad and I, we've been doing this for a while, and my brother's been now about 4.5, 5 years, and then Eli's probably around a year and a half almost, and my he's 23 now, and he's really focused on like every aspect of the backside of being a glass artist, like he's like stocking up on color. Like he's all about like knowing when the glass sales are dropping. He knows how the color works, like what colors shouldn't sit at certain temperatures at certain times. Like all that stuff, honestly, I didn't give a fuck about because I didn't even, I was like flying by the seat of my pants for like forever and ever. And now I'm at a point where I'm doing like these super technical, high-end, full-color pieces, and I'm having issues.
And you're turning around and looking at your brother, and you're like, what was the temperature I need to set the kiln at?
Yeah, bro. Or like the shit will fuck up. He's like, dude, that thing's been in the kiln like 5 cycles. You're a fucking douchebag. It needs to go through 1 cycle.
He's like, dude, you're just cooking the metal out of that.
Yeah, but it's all. I'm glad that it's there because it's the kind of shit that I need that I never had being self-taught. So it's and
you're right, and
cool.
that's one of the problems with being self-taught too, is that 9 times out of 10, how we come about figuring out a process too is probably going to be the hardest way of going about it.
Yeah, by just figuring it out. If it doesn't crack, I guess I did it okay, and then you do it again and it cracks, and it's like, what the fuck did I do wrong this time?
Right, and that's part of the problem. And one of the benefits, and I'll kind of get back to it. One of the benefits of growing up in the shop that I did grow up in, in the infancy of my career, is, with Micah there, I was lucky enough in Tucson, it was still at a time where Yashin was skating for JBD, because again, it was after Operation Pipe Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So JBD had gone from making tubes and all that other shit to he was strictly a rolling paper, T-shirt, and like skateboard producer.
Yep.
And when Yashin was still riding, when he was still a factory rider for the JBD team, he would come through Tucson a lot because, it was either, and I say a lot, probably 2 times a year, and he would stay for a couple weeks or a month, and more than likely, I always imagined it was probably to, get away from the cold weather wherever he had been.
Yeah.
And that's one of the good things about Arizona. You only have 2 seasons, hot and hotter. And that too, being where you are, what's fall? I don't even understand what it means for a leaf to change colors.
Right.
It's like, what's this white stuff falling from the sky?
Yeah, exactly.
But and I remember that use would come in, and it would be at a time where, it was like we were talking about earlier. There were heady artists, but they were so few and far between that you were really lucky at all if you ever got to see anybody like that, even on the torch.
Yeah.
Let alone actually get to, see their work, maybe get to use their work. It was a real honor back then. One of the things that is a side effect of having as many glass blowers is you've got a bunch of heavy work now that's floating around.
Mm-hmm.
So, it kind of jades, and it's unfortunate, but one of the side effects is that not only glass artists, but the collectors get kind of jaded, and whereas a piece used to be oogled and ogled over, now somebody might just look at it and be like, oh, that's cool, man, that's cool, but look at this.
Yep.
And it's just one more facet. But one of the things that we got to see when Youth would come through is he was doing stuff that, because since Micah was, in a lot of ways he was there in a teaching aspect, he wasn't necessarily, he was still throwing out crazy work for the time, but he was also having to wrangle a bunch of little, infant glass blowers. So, You know, it's not like he could necessarily take 8 hours on the torch every day and, just go at it, because he had other responsibilities. But I remember one of the most amazing things that I had ever seen was my brother and I watched Eugene from start to finish put together a bubbler, like a push bub. And back then it was the big thing back then was, how many sections it piece has.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
It was like an 18-section piece. And I remember that the whole point of the lesson was, well, we didn't know this until the lesson was over, which was also kind of, very kung-fu-ish of him. But, we didn't realize the true nature of the lesson until, he was actually completely done with the piece.
Mm-hmm.
But he puts the whole piece together, and I remember it was badass. Like, it was crazy nuts. And at the very end, he takes it, and he rips the piece off, and he takes it off the handle. And he looks at us, and he's like, and now the true test. And he sets the piece on the graphite. And I remember my brother and I were like, almost in a sense of panic, like, dude, are you gonna pick that up? And that graphite's just sucking the heat out of that piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of the lesson, unbeknownst to us at the time, was he was trying to teach us about wall thickness, and he was trying to teach us about when a piece is properly constructed. Okay, that's when you really know. And he also the older guys that we learned from, they were also really, really big on pounding into our heads. It's not what you can make; it's what you can fix.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when you know that you're badass. And we can get to that later on, but that also comes in. When you think that a piece is completely lost, and an hour and a half later you look at the piece and you're like, holy shit, I just saved that.
Yep. And
the day that you do that is probably the day that you can step back and you can actually be pretty proud of yourself and be like, okay, now I understand what they were trying to explain that entire time.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
yeah, it's so true.
And one of the things, and what he basically did though, is he walked away from the bubbler. And he was like, no, see, what you need to understand is, he's like, when something's properly constructed, he's like, you can bench cool it. Because there's no inconsistencies in the wall thickness. There's no inconsistencies in the seals. There are no inconsistencies. And when you get to that point, and then you can take the piece later and you can put it in the kiln later. I mean, and I don't suggest that people do this. That's not my method of bringing this up. But the point is that, we saw him construct something, and even at that time, also, that piece, it might have had a retail price tag on it for maybe like $500, maybe a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And and seeing what a lot of the pieces go for nowadays, and then knowing what, knowing that the first piece I ever bought, I paid $60 for, and it was an amber purple squish pattern spoon.
Yeah, mine was a peanut, $60, same thing. Fucking chameleon glass wrapping rig peanut.
Yeah, and it's just, it's weird, man. Because the industry has really, it's evolved in certain aspects, and it's also devolved in certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. Don't get me wrong. Growth is always good, but with growth comes growth. With growth comes growing pains, and there are a lot of things I think still that our industry has yet to learn. Really,
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
It as a whole, I think that's another thing that's kind of lost here. As a whole, our industry is still, we're pretty much in our infancy still. As a whole.
Yep.
But it's so basically we started off in that shop, and we had a lot of heavy hitters that would not only that we would get to see because they would come through the shop, but also just because of who I got to work with at a really young age. We also Brendan Taylor, Calvin Nickel. They both started off in Tucson. Blue Youngs, John Mims. There's a lot of us, that started off in the same in the same place. And we all basically eventually went in our own direction, as most glass blowers do. Yeah. But, basically for the first 10 years of my career, and then it was spent in Tucson, and then what ended up happening in 2013 was I had to take, it was actually kind of at the end of the health break, but from like late 2011 to late 2013, I had to take a break off the torch because I was dealing with bladder cancer and all the side effects of that. So, and that was kind of an interesting thing too, because when I was gone is really when the industry kind of blew up.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's about the same.
I was kind of, you know what I mean? Like, so I was kind of on the ass end of the bubble when I came back.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of, playing catch up and playing, and having to get back at it because, and my health still is a struggle on a daily basis. But one of the things that you learn how to do is you just, you learn how to work around it, and it's pretty much the same with any hindrance. You can't let it dictate your life. You have to find some way to work with it or work around it, especially if it's something that you can't necessarily get rid of.
Yeah.
It's one of the things where it's kind of like, I've heard talk a lot about it. It goes back to finding the balance in our industry, and in our life, emotionally, physically, mentally, everything, it just, you have to find a balance. Otherwise, you're just going to constantly be running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You're going to constantly, and like I've heard you say in the past too, you're constantly going to be playing like catch up, and it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's just, all the, all the cliches there are, they become cliche for a reason, and that's usually because it's true.
Yeah, man, it's interesting too. Like, it's, I don't see the industry being a bubble necessarily. Like you're saying, like the evolution of it and where it's going. Like, it seems right now like there's more glass blowers creating glass than there are people to use the items right now.
Oh yeah.
But but like I always say, like on a daily basis, there's like millions of new customers that are turning 18 that can now buy a quote unquote tobacco product. But then
mm-hmm.
You have your other states now where you have to be 21 to purchase it for that use.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the whole our industry, male and female, are all heavily, almost all type A people that are driven and want to get that fucking dollar, and you work like from sun up to sun up. I mean, type of thing. And I think that those that are starting to really realize where they are in their life and their like, the Coils and the Usheens and the the Joe Peters and like the big names out there, these cats got it now to a point to where they can figure out, okay, I'm working here and here and here, I'm traveling here and here and here. I know what my schedule's going to be, what my life's going to be. I don't have to fucking grind and grind and grind. And if we all took that same mentality that we don't have to grind, I mean, we really don't. If we just took our time and had our schedule and lived the life that we want to live, it wouldn't be fucking stressful. We wouldn't get burnt out. We wouldn't have shit breaking and fucking up.
Oh yeah.
And being all over the place.
Dude, and you're right too, because and that's another thing that's also really important that we should touch on too. It's always going to transfer into your work, man. You're having a bad day. You're having a shit day. You woke up, got into an argument with the old lady, or you got into an argument with the old man. You're on the way to work. I mean, it's going to transfer into your work.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of funny when I was talking to Steve about that, and the conversation we were talking about the whole, you get like a bad vibe walking in the shop, it fucks with everybody,
Yep.
And you got to like cleanse your shop out to get rid of it,
Oh fuck yeah, it does. One of the things that used to drive me insane, and I know we all know them, as long as you've worked in a shop setting, there's always one person that does this. It never fails. You talk to all the glass blowers, and there's always somebody that whenever they fuck up, they either chuck their piece at the back of their station, or they smash it on their table, or they smash it in their water cup, or there's always some sort of crazy, like, loud drama that happens when something breaks.
Mm-hmm.
that screws with everybody around you so much.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. Yeah, we have at my shop we have like a
and it's
rule
one of
against
those,
that.
Well, dig it, and that's good. That's really good, though, because if you've gotten to that point, I've got the rule of three. It's what I call the rule of three, and I can't remember who taught me it, but somebody along the way just imparted this knowledge to me. You know, it was, you know, they would tell me, if you break 3 things in one day, you need to stop.
Yeah, time to go home.
You need to shut your torch off. Yeah, you need to shut your torch off. You need to shut the kiln down, ramp the kiln down. It's time to go home.
Yeah.
You know, and it can be as silly as, you know, you're trying to prep up, you know, shit for your next day's worth of work. If you're just running through prep or running through materials, and if you can't even figure out, you know, you can't even get the prep figured out that day, yeah, so the old rule of three, man, you just need to quit it. You know, just step away, come back the next day, you know, because nothing that you're going to do is going to be productive. Even if you do get something made, it's going to be shit.
Yeah, it's true. I can't tell you how many times, like, I've been out in the shop working and my kids, like, would come out, you know, and, hey, Dad, and they would, like, scare the shit out of me and throw me off for the rest of the day. And I had to tell them, like, you know, make sure you knock on the door, or if you come in the shop, just stand there until I acknowledge that you're in the shop. And then
yeah, I have a real bad problem doing that too.
You know, because
I don't know if you're like that, but I could tell when somebody's watching me. Like I just get that skin crawly feeling, like somebody's staring at me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you know, that'll happen a lot. Where, you know, it can even just be a casual onlooker. You know, somebody maybe that's visiting somebody else in the shop. You avoid a lot of that with the home shop, you know, but again, I don't really think a home shop is the way to go until you're established, you know, and there's multiple reasons for that. You know, you can deal with being a hermit and a social reject when you have an established, you know, career.
Yep.
But until that happens, you know, you do have to be out there, you know, shaking babies and kissing hands, like we like to say, you know.
Yeah.
It's part of it, you know. It's part of the industry that we're in. You know, there needs to be a certain amount of face-to-face contact, at least with your, you know, your retailers, you know, the shops that move your work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's the community that we have is, you know, it's all relationship based, 100%. Whether you're, you know, it's artist to artist or artist to retailer or artist to customer. It's all. I mean, business in general is like that, where it's really relationship based, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses out there lose that sight, you know, and you can tell through their customer service. But you know, it's definitely it's important, and I agree with the whole, you know, the idea of, you know, because like, you know, me, I was in my cave for fucking 10 years at least on my own, learning my thing. But also on that same note, from doing that for so long, I started dealing with I was getting social anxiety disorders and all kind of fucked up stuff because I was always in the studio. I was never out in public. And then when I would go to a concert that I had gone to 100 times, I'd go there and have like anxiety and panic attacks, which was fucking stupid. And I would like question myself, like, why is this going on? And then I would think about like, well, I just spent 60 hours this week by myself in my shop. I wasn't really with my family much. Like, it was just complete clusterfuck, you know. And that goes back to my point from before. You know, it's like we got to find that work-life balance, not have to always be on the hustle. You got to stop and understand that, you know, the customers are there.
And we also, and it's like you said too, we also have a really, really bad habit as a whole of, I don't know if it's because I don't want to say that as a whole we're all procrastinators. I know that I tend to procrastinate, at least in certain aspects. I mean, I don't really procrastinate when it comes to getting on the torch. But when it comes to selling my work and doing things like that, you know, and pounding the pavement, I know that I might necessarily not be as Johnny on the spot as I need to be with that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that can come back to bite you in the ass.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You know? Yeah, I agree.
And it's like you just said, you know, and one of the problems, and dude, even further, you know, you're putting in like 10, 12-hour days, shit, sometimes even more. You know, you can lose relationships that way because, you know, the only time you're seeing the other person is basically, you know, when they either come into the shop or, you know, you're not making an allotment of time for people. You know, you're not you're not finding the balance, and I have boss relationships like that. I have, it's one thing when you crawl into bed next to your significant other, maybe once, twice every week. It's a whole other thing when you're doing it 6-7 days out of the week.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like my wife and I have a rule: if just because of my sleep patterns that I have and the way I talk a lot in my sleep and snore and shit, if I get to bed at a certain time, so we have a rule that if I'm like home late from the shop and it's after 2:00, I got to sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
So I make it now a priority where I'm in bed by 10:00 just to make sure that I'm in bed with her.
Well, see, yeah, and because you don't want to fucking sleep on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. Like last night, I was on the couch last night.
Right? I mean, dude, it's funny too because you also will, a lot of us, in order to make a household run, it's a very unique situation. I would say very much so the exception, not the rule, where you can have both sides of a couple be artistic and actually somehow making a living at being artistic, both of them. Most of us, what we wind up with is a situation where it's like, you've got the artistic one and then you've got the one with the real job. Now, and mind you, I am an artist calling the other person's job a real job. I mean, not to say that ours isn't a real job, because it most definitely is, and it absolutely is a profession. It absolutely is a career, but the difference being is ultimately we can make our own schedule, ultimately. Ultimately you can cut the lines on your torch, pack up some tools, and you can travel anywhere. It's like you were saying. I hate to say this, I hate to bring this back up because I know it happened in another episode, but hence why we're kind of, like strippers in a way, we make a living anywhere, man. Have tools, we'll travel.
Yep, exactly. It's funny when we were talking about that earlier. It's like, even like you go by these strip clubs and they have like the featured dancer for the night. Now you go by smoke shops and they have the featured glass artist. I'll be on stage tomorrow, dude, from 3 to 9 at Bohemian Lair in Cocoa Beach, Florida, on a pole shaking my dick.
Even more so, we even got a talented DJ spinning when I'm up on stage, baby.
Exactly, we got DJ Elbow in the background.
right, DJ Elbow on them 1s and 2s.
Yeah, it's so fucking funny,
man.
Dude.
And it is true though, because it's funny. I know a lot of guys that they call it the guys that I know that do it. They call it being the monkey in the cage. And there's a lot of guys that I know that work in front of a window, where people can come and watch them work, present company included.
Yep.
And it's just, some people can do that, and some people can't. Some people can rock that and have that kind of personality where, they're gonna get that sale in the champagne room.
Yep, exactly.
But that's also part of our industry too. Like we were talking about, you go to a trade show, and you've always got. It's like there's two groups of strippers too, and I know we're really kind of done in on this, but you got the veterans, and then you got the ones that are hungry. And the veterans are just the ones kicking back in their booth, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm the one that made this stuff. Yeah, oh, you want to know the price on that? That's cool. Here, I'll tell you what that is."
Yep.
And they deal with the sales as they come up, and then you've got the guys that are still basically like an old timey. Like carnival hawker, where you're talking to the crowd, you're trying to interest people in coming into your booth. You're selling yourself, essentially.
Yeah, dude. It's funny thinking about it. It's like, because we are in the adult industry. I mean, no doubt about it.
We really are. Yeah, I mean,
Champs has been the adult trade show for fucking ever. And now that the glass is where it is, now they incorporate the glass. But it's, it's like you look at the OG glass blowers. It's like, okay, I invented the blowjob, and now you have like the new school glass blowers like, well, I can give you a blowjob, and I'll cup your balls for you, and I'll give it to you for a little bit cheaper.
And I will give you a reach around, and I'll do all that at your house for half the price that other guy will.
Exactly. And the quality's maybe even better glass-wise, You
never know. You'll never know until you give me a chance, buddy.
Yeah, so it's a fucked up correlation, but damn, man, it's so true. And that's why
it really is.
That's why I got to stay up with the times, because I want to be able to. I want to make sure I'm cupping balls and giving reach arounds.
Dude, that's no shit, man. That's why, dude. If the new shit is to eat the booty like groceries, and fucking hey, man, I guess that's what the new shit is.
Yep. But we also now, as we evolve, we got to make sure we keep the old shit in there too, you know? So, you know, like I'm all about the whole protection,
dude,
you know? I'm not going to be out there, you know, barebacking. I'm all about wearing a sleeve if I got to, you know?
Right? You know, you still got to, the playground is not as safe as it once was.
Exactly. Oh man, it's so crazy. But you know, it's funny, man, because like, you know, once the concentrates and stuff started coming out, and like the rigs were coming out, and you know, whatever else, I was like, man, I honestly was kind of grossed out about the whole idea of the process.
Oh yeah.
You know, and seeing seeing what was going on. But then as the laws changed and things got really cleaned up, I started, you know, opening my eyes more to the medical benefits of it and what have you. But now fast forwarding, like, I guess like 3.5, 4 years now that the nails have been out there and now it's gone. I mean, the technology is crazy, but now we have to make sure that we're incorporating a bowl into these rigs to make sure that they're multi-purpose now, you know, because like myself personally, I'm old school. I don't mind the new school, you know, variations, but I prefer the old school. So now,
I'm definitely, I mean, like you said, the concentrates are great, but I'm still, you know, I don't mind busting out with the proto every once in a while, you know. And then that's the other thing. I'm a glass blower, and I use a proto pipe most of the time personally.
Yeah.
Which I know it's probably going to make people laugh hysterically, but, you know.
Oh, dude, it was like that meme that was going around for a while with the Dos Equis guy on there, and it's like, when I'm in my studio, I'm using a piece that's got 5 cracks in it and has got a hole in the bowl or some bullshit, you know. It's like our shop piece is like some fucked up shit. But then you see some cats out there that, you know, may have that some of the ballers that have like their shop piece is like a U-Sheen or something, you know. Something totally different.
Which is pretty crazy, dude, because it's funny too, and that you're right. That's a real telltale example because, you know, you go over to certain glass blowers places and you say, you know, well, what kind of badass glass do you have? And they're going to look at you and they're going to say, well, dude, in reality, the badass glass that I have, I sell because this is what I do for a living. The glass that I keep is shit. Yep. It's because it's not saleable.
Yep, exactly.
You know, I mean, hence what we were talking about before, too, hence, like, giving shit away, you know? Like, there's just, you have to have QC. You have to have QC. You know, if you don't, it's just going to come back to bite you in the ass in so many aspects, in so many different aspects.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So to kind of move forward, dude, on the topics wise, I'm just kind of curious, like in terms of like your shop setup and stuff. Is it you and your brother are in your shop together? Like you guys share a studio space, or how you guys working that?
Yeah,
out?
you know, that is actually what's going on right now. He's actually in a transitional period, though. He's actually right now because basically what's going on is he's going up to Chicago and he's hanging out with our little brother who lives up in Chicago for a little while. But basically what happens is, you know, we got a 2-person shop. We have it set up in technically the master bedroom of the house. But, you know, again, it's dealing, you know, with Arizona. You know, there are certain times of the day where it's not conducive to blow glass. You know, when it's 120 degrees outside, you know, and you've got a 1,000-degree kiln next to you and you're, you know, behind a torch, it just, everything, you know, it can become too much, you know, and it can become unhealthy.
Yeah.
You know, but basically, I run a Mirage, a GTT Mirage. I've had the old girl for 12 years. Didn't have it refurbished until she was a decade old.
Oh yeah.
Now she runs just like when she was brand new. Like my personal opinion for the newbies and everybody who's just starting or looking to start, it can be really tempting to just get a hold of something and start. But what you also need to remember too is there is a benefit to not having to update your tools, and there is a benefit to trying to get the best tool that you possibly can from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, because it's a tool. You're going to use it. You're going to use it every single day. You need it to make a living. You need it to be there. You know, so treat it nicely. Remember that every time you needed to turn on, you needed to turn on. So treat it accordingly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Especially nowadays with all the newer technology and tools that are coming out, it's pretty cool seeing it.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like now I can even have my older Mirage. I can send my Mirage into GTG and have them like drill the what do you call it? Not the deck, but drill the head piece and basically have it set up so that it's just like a Herbie. I can have compressed air put into my Mirage.
Oh, okay.
Now.
Yeah.
And it's just, but you're right though, and it's so I have that. I actually, and again, this just goes to at the time it was the best piece of equipment I could afford, other than a tray of vermiculite. So, I will not. I don't recommend starting off with a Paragon SG3 because it's really meant for beads. It's basically the largest bead kiln that Paragon makes, I think.
Okay.
Other than the Bluebird, but those are laid out, which you can still work out of those too. You just have to keep in mind that even when you're done with a piece, you're not going to be able, stand it up to, nail in the kiln. You're going to have it laid down. So
yeah, dude, I'm not a fan of that kiln. Like, I understand it, but like we have one at work at Disney, and it's like our backup emergency benchtop kiln sometimes, and I've had to use it before, and it's like I can't do anything with it. It doesn't hold temperature. If the door's even cracked, it runs air cycles. It's
see, and that's the other thing. And you're right. No, and it brings up a really good point. That's one of the other problems that I have with the SG3 is that the SG3 doesn't. It's got a refrigerator door. It's not a guillotine.
Oh yeah, okay, yep.
And not to say that you can't make a refrigerator door kiln work, because you totally can. You can rock what you make. You can rock what you got, and you can make it work. And I've seen some crazy shit being made work before. Like I've seen people that have straight up worked out of top loaders before, and they don't even have a prep mill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So there you make work what you have, but so I have the SC3 with a bead door. Just the bead door is the only reason that the kiln is really even a viable, like a viable option, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do need a working door, I would say, in our industry. You have to be able to have the ability to, at least when you're doing any sort of complicated, construction or any sort of construction work that takes several steps. You have to have that working door.
Yeah, you got to be able to garage your parts for sure.
Yeah, otherwise you're just going to be breaking shit and pissing yourself off.
Yeah.
I recently purchased a new F500. That kiln's fucking gigantic. I can crawl in the damn thing.
Nice.
So, but again, you turn that bad boy on and you're heating up whatever space you're in like that.
Yeah.
And it's one thing, it's one thing in the wintertime where you're literally running into the shop and you're like, oh shit, let's get that kiln on, let's get that torch turned on. It's a whole different thing though when, you live in a place where, like we were talking about before, you're dealing with 100+ degree heat. You can seriously, all of these things combined can make for an extremely dangerous environment if you're not aware of what you're doing.
Yeah, man. It's funny you say that. Yesterday I was listening to Tim Ferriss, and he had a guest on. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy he's a chef, and I mean, it was an awesome conversation. But anyways, he was saying that when he was a line cook and learning the whole chef process, he would be between like the grill, cooktop, and the fryers or whatever, and he had like his little pocket thermometer, for checking his meats and stuff in his pocket. He could look down and see it would read like 120 degrees, So
yeah.
on the way over to Disney yesterday, I was listening to this, and it got me thinking. I'm like, damn, it's like those thermometers probably will cost, it's like maybe $2 or some shit like that. You probably find one at the dollar store even. And I mean, we should all seriously like think about like having one and try like just for experimentation. Tape it to your shirt or put it in your shirt pocket or whatever you're wearing, and wear it all fucking day and really keep a track of your temperatures. Like how much exposure is your body getting? Because, like, back in the day, bro, like, when I was working, like, 50 to 52 mil standard wall tube, we were making some big inside-out spins with it.
Oh, fuck yeah.
You know, like, I was cooking, like, I swear I was cooking my heart because it was so fucking hot.
Oh, yeah, no, see,
you know?
And you bring up a really good point, too, because I know for a fact that ambient air temperature in the shop can get upwards of 150 degrees. 150 degrees, dude. Like, I've had doctors tell me before, you know, one of the reasons why, you know, we all kind of shirk it off all the time, you know, and we, you know, especially veterans, we you know, tend not to think about it. But the reason that we have such, the reason that we have, like, no sensitivity and next to no feeling in the web of our hands and, like, on the side of your pointer finger and the inside of your thumb is because when you think about it, we are constantly, it's kind of like taking a piece of meat and slow spit roasting it over years and years and years of time. The problem is that basically what we're doing is we're spit roasting our hands.
Yeah.
And dude, we're killing the nerve endings. We're killing certain portions of our skin. And it's why we can't feel anything. It's one of the reasons why you get to that level in glass blowing where the heat no longer bothers you.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing and that's a bad thing all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's that long-term exposure. It's like we're like rotisserie chickens or something.
Or dude, and the other thing, too, that you see a lot of the time now, too, is torch selfies have become extremely popular. And one of the things that I've noticed looking at everybody's torch selfie is a lot of the guys that are out there and gals out there that are blowing glass now are actually using the wrong filter as far as their goggles go.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They're using, they're using soda, basically they're using soda line glasses for Boro.
Yeah, like the rose glasses.
And then they put up a post on Instagram the next day and they're like, why does it feel like my eyes have sand in them? It's like, well, because there's keratitis.
Yeah, you got calcium in your eyes.
You know, you've literally burned your cornea.
Yep.
You know, and that's another thing too. You see another thing too, where they're like, "Oh, got a pretty bad sunburn on my torch or from my torch today." Like, that's not a sunburn. You're getting cooked by ultraviolet rays. That's a UV burn.
Yep, exactly.
And it has a very specific happening on a human being's makeup. And the problem is that, you know, it's like you said, one of the reasons that you started the whole program is so that you can get the safety awareness raised and you can get all of this, you know, because I don't think a lot of people understand, you know, having your garage door kicked open and having a box fan, having a 20-inch box fan, you know, behind you or, you know, pointed at your torch, that's not moving enough air. We'll just say that that's not an OSHA-approved ventilation system.
Yeah, exactly. But it's even if you have good ventilation and you have a fan blowing at your back, it's fucking up your circulation on your bench. Your stuff is not getting removed properly. You know, out of your ventilation.
And that's another thing that, you know, and you're right, and that's another thing that's not known. And that's another thing. Boys and girls, dude, if you can't do the math, and I am not being insulting at all, there's a lot of us that aren't very good at math, but if you cannot do the math, go to an AC back guy or, you know, a cooling and heating guy. Have them do the math on square footage of your shop, knowing what kind of CFI fans you need, because you need to be dumping, like the air in my shop is dumping completely every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Every 30 seconds, it's completely refabbing the air in the shop. And it's still just, and I know for a fact that mine's just barely should be considered safe limit. You know, I don't think that there's a lot of, you know, and it's just reality. You know, you're supposed to be able to call material companies no matter what industry you're in, and you're supposed to get an MSDS report.
Yep.
Okay? That's the law. We're supposed to be allowed to do that. Reality is you probably would call some of our material manufacturers, ask them for an MSDS report, and you would probably get told that that's proprietary information.
Yeah, right? Or they look at you like a deer in headlights, like, huh? What's that?
Yeah, and they're not going to know what an MSDS report is, okay?
Or if they do, it's false.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing is that what people don't understand is Yeah, we could talk for hours on this, but I mean, dude, there are some pretty harmful chemicals, and there are some pretty harmful additives that go into our, and reactive agents that go into our materials that are extremely detrimental to the human body.
Yep.
And if you're not taking the proper safety precautions, you're gonna make yourself sick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guarantee it, dude. In 10 to 20 years from now, there is going to be a influx of sick glass artists out there that, whether or not they're being safe now or 5 years
or
down
it
the
was
road.
due to, like you said, it was due to improper use in the beginning.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
No, and it changes our DNA. I mean, it's like there's a lot of, like, I still haven't done it yet. I got to make an appointment with this blood specialist. Because, like when I did my show with Adrienne and we were talking about her issues she's dealing with and lupus and whatever else, and it's like, she's like, make sure you work a couple hours before you go take this test so you can really get a true idea of what kind of shit you're getting. Because I want to do this and get the results and then expose my results so everybody can see and hear exactly what the fuck it is that we're being exposed to. And I don't really work a lot of color. I still have buckets of fucking scraps that I've been holding on to that I use for all my accent colors. Don't get me wrong, I'll buy material every once in a while color wise, but I enjoy clear work and I enjoy shape and the color accents. But even the clear itself, whether I'm buying Chinese or shot or fucking whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all made from chemicals, even if it's a silica form, it's all fucked up, and not to mention like you're saying, the UV coming off of it. Like the guy I talked to from Natural Lux that does the UV shade covers for fluorescent lights, he's in the process of looking up information to see like what the real exposure for our eyes are. Like I get my eyes checked every year. I just got them checked recently. My vision hasn't changed in 10 years, but the potential in
knock on wood.
Yeah,
because you don't want to have to start necessarily wearing glasses underneath the goggles.
Yeah, I mean I could use them now honestly, but in 20 years from now,
so you got cheaters on? Do you have a pair of do you have the stick-on lenses?
No, I was thinking about getting a pair of actually like prescription dideniums, but I have astigmatism, so my vision, my sight is just skewed just enough to where some things are blurry from a distance, but not enough to where I'm going to spend $5,000 on a pair of fucking glasses. But I do notice that I think to the deep details of the eye with the rods and cones and being able to pick up light and color and stuff, I'd know that my night vision is not the same, just from the brightness and the exposure to the brightness. I mean, shit, you work on your torch and you walk outside, it takes like, 10 minutes at least just to be able to fucking see.
Oh, hell yeah, dude, because you literally, and a lot of you younger guys guys and gals might not be aware of this, but when you put on some serious time on the torch, like serious time, you walk outside and it's weird. It's almost like you're wearing sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. You can't see, you can't see. And that's also another reason too, that it should be a definite sign that we're doing something wrong, is when you walk outside and it's 115 degrees outside and it feels like a breath of fresh air.
Right. Yeah.
There's something seriously wrong with that.
Yep, we had a couple of those this summer here in Florida, bro. Like studio.
Oh man, and
it's fucking brutal. It's 100 degrees outside, not quite really, but even 95 degrees outside, and it's cooler than it's in the shop.
There was one night in particular where I got off the torch at about 2, and I went out on my front porch, and it was still 102 degrees outside.
My God.
Yeah. This summer specifically was brutal. This was the first summer that I can remember in my career where there were days at a time where I took off the torch, because it's kind of like what you were talking about mentally. I could not. You just don't have the fortitude to do it.
No, I was the same way, bro. I was glad I had this podcast to do, because I was the same way. There were days where I was like, I didn't want to even go on at night at 10 o'clock at night. Like I remember there was years ago when I was working with my buddies over at Zen, and just turning the kiln on for my heat up, and it's reading the inside temperature of the studio 10 o'clock at night as at 120 fucking degrees at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And there's nobody working in there. That's just from the heat in the studio from the day, and then obviously the the Florida weather, and it's like we can go on, like I keep saying, we can go on for hours talking about this, because it's so vital to understand that we have got to pay attention. We have to take breaks. give ourselves, some fluids in our, bodies, everything. Like, really got to make sure that we're maintaining this. And not to mention the stretching and everything else. Because all this shit adds up, man, and we're going to fuck ourselves up.
Oh, and dude, and like you just said, stretching, because, I mean, guys, think about it. It's what we do. It's repetitive motion injuries. That's why they're so prevalent in our fucking industry. Because dude, we are doing the same exact thing. And you think like carpal tunnel's bad? In on a keyboard? Think about what it's going to be like after spending, 10, 12 hours a day spinning pieces that are pounds a piece.
Yeah.
That shit adds up. Little weight, mass reps, that it all adds up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Like at Disney yesterday, I had I posted my picture on Instagram. I had like 25 Olafs. They were like little small pieces I had, like little small details I had to fix, or a branch breaking off, or an arm coming off, or whatever. And but I hold them the same way every single time I fix it. And my pointer finger on my right hand is killing me.
Right. Right. See, and that's the other thing too. And one of the problems is, and it just kind of goes back to why you have to make sure that the safety precautions are there. Why you have to make sure that, it's like you were saying. It doesn't matter if you haven't done this kind of fitness your entire life, let alone you may not have done it since you were a little kid.
Yeah.
But the reason it's so important is because, most of us are independent contractors. Most of us, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to go to the hospital. There's very few of us that have the ability to have insurance, that, have the basically the grace of insurance, because, you see it happen all the time, especially in the glass blowing shop. If you get hurt really bad, they'll tell you, or at least it used to be that way. You'd get hurt really bad, and they would tell you, "Don't tell them you got hurt here. You damn well better make sure you told them you got hurt like that at your house."
Yeah, exactly.
Because they don't. It's just and that's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons you have to be safe. Even more doubly safe is because you don't have that parachute. You don't have that safety net. It's gonna cost you money to go to the emergency room or to go to the doctor, and it could theoretically be money that you really don't have to spend.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, man, it's like, there's I think it's called, what the hell is it? There's a term, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there's a insurance you can get for being self-employed, and there's a, it's a self-employment insurance program basically, but you can put money into, or you pay,
it's like a stopgap program.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to have. I mean, like you're saying, if you cut yourself really bad and you have to go to the fucking emergency room, you could not only lose work, but the amount of money you spend on hospital bills, it's outrageously crazy. And like you're saying, dude, like with Disney, I burnt the shit out of myself there several times, and my manager's like, "Do we need to follow, whatever, workman's comp?" And I'm like, "No, don't even worry about it. I've got insurance. I'll take it. I'll take care of it myself."
Right, because it's one of those things, and people need to understand that too. You need to understand, it doesn't matter what is the norm in our industry or not. It doesn't matter if safety breaks are the norm in our industry or not. You work in a production shop, you get hurt, you have to file a workman's comp claim. The first thing they're going to make you do is piss in a cup.
Yep, exactly.
What are you going to do? You're going to look at the workman's comp guy and you're going to say, "Ooh, I'm going to need to make a run by a smoke shop before I do that, bud."
Yeah.
No, dude, it doesn't work that way, dude. It's seriously, but it's like you brought up. If we are not aware of these things, dude, sometimes this can be a real cold slap in the face because, like I say, becoming an adult, man, sucks. Stay a kid as long as you can. There's a reason for that.
Yep. Yeah, I preach it to my kids all the time. Like, they start telling each other what to do. I'm like, dude, stop being a fucking parent. Be a kid. Enjoy it. Let me be the parent and deal with the responsibilities. Don't worry about it. But we like to say,
trust me.
We got to be smart.
And trust me. And I was there just like everybody else, dude. I used to look at people that would only be 5, 6 years older than me, and they would say, "You don't understand." There is a huge difference between the two of us. And when I was a younger kid, I would always have a chip on my shoulder, and I'd be like, fuck that. You don't know what you're talking about. You're only like 5 years older than me. What is there that's, where is this huge gap that you keep talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't understand until you get to that age. You don't understand until you get to the age where, there's a reason that they call them big boy problems, like real adult problems, you can't call, you can't call your mortgage company and say, hey, listen, my collectors have been kind of short this month, are you willing to take trades and slaps for my mortgage, I wish you could. Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
It would make all of our lives so much easier.
Yeah.
But, it's just not that way yet.
Yeah. But, it's funny. It's when I was in college taking art classes, he was my drawing 2 and design 2 teacher. And the guy was like a phenomenal photorealistic portrait painter. Like, just fucking crazy stuff. Like, he could do like the governor's portraits and president's portraits, like all that kind of shit. But
literally, yeah, shit where you're like, dude, his shit could literally belong in museums.
Yeah, it looks like a photograph. But he would teach us in his class, as part of our thing was a lot of business talk he would do, and it was all about the idea of bartering your art for services, whether it's a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. So whenever I have like a doctor appointment or a dentist appointment or some shit or something new or a new whatever doctor, I talk to him, say, hey, I'm an artist. This is what I do. Here's some pictures of my shit. Would you be interested ever in bartering your services for my services? It doesn't ever hurt to ask. But like you're saying, you can't, if you got a bill that's due, you can't call that company and be like, hey, man, I'll trade you a pipe for this bill. That shit ain't going to work.
Right? You're like, hey, man, I know that I owe you a month's worth of, I know I owe you a month's worth of rent. How would you consider 10 production spoons the cost of this month's rent, huh? I'm giving you a pretty good deal there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to call T-Mobile and be like, hey, I'll put your name on a pipe and you guys can like sell some T-Mobile pipes, or some shit.
Right? I'll send you out a couple T-Mobile pipes. How does that sound?
Oh, man, that's so funny. Yeah,
but you're right, though. It's also, dude, it's important to make those kind of connections in your life. It's important to, that's just one more aspect of being an artist. That's just one more aspect of bartering, and why bartering is so cool. And, I like it a lot more when an artist especially will get a hold of me and they'll say, listen, and don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that I don't like to get paid for my work. I do like to get paid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it is nice every once in a while that when it's another artist that you can borrow out work even with another artist.
Oh yeah, I love that shit.
Whereas, you know what I mean? Like instead of a glass blower calls you or hits you up and says, listen, I really like that pen that you put out. Or is there any of my work that you're interested in? Or, is there anything that I made that you'd be interested in trading? It doesn't hurt to ask.
Yep.
The worst that it's kind of like my grandparents used to say, the worst that can happen is they can say no.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really not all that bad because if they say no, you're just back to the same position that you were before. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and it's in the business world too. It's so important to have that mentality. For those that aren't familiar with the whole Rich Dad Poor Dad book series that came out years and years ago, Guy Kawasaki talks about in the series about getting jobs to learn skills, and one of the skills that he needed to learn was how to be told no. It was like a huge fear that he had was being told no. So he went and got a job at Xerox selling fucking copy machines and was told no 1,000 fucking times. But by being told no 1,000 times, when the yeses that he got were huge contracts, and 2 years into the company or whatever it was, he was like the number one salesperson. And then as soon as he reached that pinnacle of being that number one salesperson, he quit his job and went on to the next thing.
Well, see, and you bring up a really good point too, because I think that that's probably one of the things that gets overlooked in our industry, and it is one thing that I do want to just touch on really quick because I do want to commend all the people out there that really take the really take the risk, and they make their living full time on their art. That's a real scary jump, and it's especially for those of us that do it. I mean, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, if you don't produce, you're not. I mean, see, and that's the other thing too. It's really scary in a lot of aspects, but one of the things that I think is so detrimental in our industry, and one of the things that we forget to look at and really kind of bring to light is you do 9 times out of 10, man, you're going to, I mean, and until you really raise the awareness of your pieces and people, you gain a following and you gain a certain recognition and everything else, which just goes also back into the whole business aspect of it. But, until those kind of things happen, you're going to get told no a lot more than you're going to get told yes.
Yep.
You're going to get beat down on your prices a lot more. I tell people all the time when they ask me, it wasn't until I was in this industry for about a decade, it wasn't until I hit about my 10th year where I stopped getting questioned on my pricing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It happened I was in the industry for about a decade. And it's also actually, quite coincidentally, it's also when the glass blowing actually started, paying quote-unquote dividends, where you're actually bringing in a true livable wage, because the whole thing is, if you make a sale and let's say it's $510 pipes, okay? So, if you're making a sale, a $5,000 sale, once every 5 months, but you're not making any sales in between then, and it's literally, you're only making, $2,000 to $5,000 sales per year, that's not a livable wage.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's great when it happens. Don't get me wrong, and you count the days until it happens. But see, the problem is that it's not something you can count on. It's not something that you can rely on. That's also one of the hardest parts about being a full-time glass blower is everything is dependent on you.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
From making sure that the shop is running, to making sure that you have material, to making sure that you have the ability to get up and blow glass, to make sure that you have the ability to go out and sell your work, to making the connections, to taking the time to, to really, I wouldn't say covet the relationship, but you work at it. It's weird, you work at it, even though it's still a purely business relationship, you still want it to be a good relationship. You don't ever want one side to ever feel taken advantage of,
mm-hmm.
or to feel beholden to the other party. It's just, that's when you'll start running into resentments. That's when you'll start running into issues with, you'll call a supplier, you'll call a retailer, and, they'll tell you, well, listen, man, in reality, the work you sold us 6 months ago, is still sitting here. And that's the other thing that as a business owner that you really need to think about. Yeah, it's fun making those really, really expensive pieces, and you feel so badass when you're done. You really do. There's just that sense of accomplishment where you're like, man, I'm glad I'm at a point in my career where I can actually make that happen, because I can remember a point in my career when I couldn't do that. But the reality of it is that you're not going to be selling those pieces every single day. You're not going to be selling multi-$1,000 pieces every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you are, you're the exception to the rule. You're not the rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Even
like when I took the Joe Peters class, he cranked out a couple pendants while we were there. His honeycomb
mm-hmm.
pendants. And don't get me wrong, his honeycomb pendants are like $150, $250, whatever. But still, that's because of his name.
But still, you're right, though. It puts everything in perspective,
yeah.
And you're right, because if you can't get a functional piece for somebody, if you can't get a functional piece from a specific artist for anything under, let's say, $3,000, having a $300 or $400 or $500 pendant is extremely reasonable when you consider it.
Yeah, it's like Mickelson and his bullets. You can't afford to buy one of his guns, but you can purchase a bullet. It's
Merck. It's funny. Merck actually taught me a lot about that. And I will always be very grateful to him for teaching me this. But I met him at a demo, him and Merck and some of his minions. And again, I don't mean to be insulting, but, it's how they refer to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had a good enough memory that I could remember everybody's name, but I don't. But they were doing a demo up here in Phoenix, and I remember I came down, and I was chilling with Merck, and he explained to me, he was like, And this was when I was just getting back on the torch after having been sick too. And he was explaining to me, he was like, well, listen, I can make $1,000 pieces or multi-$1,000 pieces all day, every day. He's like, but the reality is I might sell one of those maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month. But a $20 t-shirt or a $10 sticker pack or a $15 hat, I can sell that when I'm drinking my coffee in the morning. I can sell that when I'm on the shitter. I can sell it when I'm in the shower. I can sell it when I'm asleep. Because reality is you're moving that kind of merchandise over a website.
Yep.
You're never touching anything. You're never actually having to go out and beat feet. And he also to coincide with that, it was not everyone can afford a multi-$1,000 piece. Pretty much everyone can afford a $20 t-shirt.
Exactly. And that's the fun thing now too with the way our industry has gone with names now becoming brands to where you can create merchandise to go along with your product line. Like you're saying, like t-shirts and stickers and hat pins. Like the hat pins, I don't know, it's kind of weird, man. Like don't know if they're as hot as they were, but it's still a great item to have as a collector's type thing.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that they're necessarily pulling down the money and or the popularity that they necessarily were right at first. Mm-hmm. But I do still think that, you sell somebody a really nice piece. It comes with a matching pendant. It comes with a limited edition pin. I think that these things are great because I really think from a salesman standpoint, people like sets.
Yeah. People
like multiple pieces that all represent the same piece in essence. Yep. It's just a nice wrapped up little package, I guess. It's a nice way of sending your stuff out. It's like every sale you have, it's like sending out stickers for every sale you have.
Yeah, I agree, bro. I do that with everything I sell. Every item has I shouldn't say every, 95% of them have a sticker pack in them. And, but like going back to that topic, it's like the past year I've really been finding like my path in a sense with my glass and with the whole Wise Guy brand and how I was going to take it. But then do I want to have that just be like my production and then have my off art on the side doing the things that are not pipes, whatever. But I started reading a lot. I've been getting into a lot more of design magazines like Elle Decor, for instance, and looking at the perspective of an actual fashion designer and having sets for seasons. Like having a line. So I started thinking about like, okay, so how can I break it up into, because our not only is our year broken up into quarters, but our business year is also broken up into quarters. Our fashion seasons are broken up into quarters. TV shows are broken up into thirds, I guess, nowadays.
Anything that's relevant.
But yeah, anything that's major and mainstream, because the human experience wants difference, they want change. But if they like you as a designer, as an artist, they will continue to follow your work and purchase it as long as it's not the same shit. So with that in mind, it's like it's so important to have this ebb and flow of your collections. Even if you say you make 4 collections one year and then you release that same collection the next year, change it a little bit, but now you have this consistency going. But it also gives you an idea too, like you're saying with the whole set concept. Like when you buy dishes, you're not just going to buy a fucking plate. You're going to buy a plate and a small saucer and a coffee cup probably, and bowls and everything else to go along with it. So why not do that same thing in your artwork?
Well, see, because in essence, you're absolutely right, brother. In essence, it's what you're doing is it's just another form of branding. It's just one more aspect of the business industry. And that's why a lot of the times, too, it's one of the reasons why I still think that our industry itself is in its infancy, is because we still haven't really picked up on the real, and I'm not trying to be insulting to anybody or anything, but we really haven't picked up on real business practices yet and tried and true business practices, because everything is still kind of loosey-goosey, very friendly, and sometimes if you take a very business-type attitude with people, you'll get the you'll get the response of that either people think you're cold, or people think that you're arrogant, or people think that you don't necessarily, you're not socially inclined, or whatever it may be. But when in reality, what it is you're just trying to keep your business and your personal relationships separate, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I will adamantly stick to that. I'm not saying that you cannot be friendly and or friends with shop owners, customers, the like, because I absolutely think that you can. I think that, as a matter of fact, that's where you get some of the best, most fruitful relationships out of our industry. But everybody needs to keep in mind, though, too, is that because this is a business, there needs to be clear-cut kind of rules and guidelines in a certain essence.
Yeah. I totally agree, dude. And again, one more premise of why I'm doing this show, like trying to find some way for a cohesiveness across the industry. Like I just recently did a show about like the top 5 things that you need to look at when you're doing a demo. I've never experienced it myself, but having done demos now not only for Disney, but going to different shops. And at Disney alone, I have 3 different places I go to when I work there. So it's a different environment every single time. So I need to know what the fuck I'm getting into when I go to these environments. And being that I've been there for almost 4 years now, I do. But when you go to a new smoke shop for a demo, like I'm going to, say, tomorrow, I only know what I'm getting myself into because I've communicated to the shop owner, this is what I need. He asked me what my needs were as well, and I was like, well, I need some cover and maybe a tent. And he's like, well, we've got a 10-foot awning or whatever, hallway cover thingy over the front of the store. I'm like, fucking awesome. So, like thank you, but it's so important to have these checklists. So I made a checklist, and my newsletter's going out today, and that's going to be like a downloadable checklist. And then also, along with that checklist, I'm going to write up a contract. So when you go do a show, before you even fucking say yes, this contract needs to be signed in blood saying, this is what I'm getting out of this process. Because I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of people going to situations, going to a shop that said, yeah, man, I'll spend $1,000, and they walk out with $100. It's like the communication has to be there. It has to be set. It has to be professional. If you're telling me this, like I've got one of my shop owners, dude, if you tell him you're going to give him a discount, and then all of a sudden you don't give him a discount, and he's like, hey, dude, you said you're going to give me 10% off, and you don't, he won't buy a fucking thing from you and probably never buy anything from you again. And it might have been over $50, and that you lost a relationship and thousands of potential dollars down the road. So I agree with you 100%, dude. Like there's got to be a consistency across the basis. That's why I haven't done trade shows yet, because I haven't been to the environment of the trade show. Before I do a trade show, like I was going to go to Big that was just here in Miami recently, and I ended up working over at Disney, and things came up. So anyways, I want to go first, be a part of it, and just walk around and see what it's all about, so I can then prepare for the next round. Because you get there and then all of a sudden,
it is a lot. It is a lot to deal with that. It is a lot to deal with, and dude, and then it goes even further on. And again, this is more of the business aspect of it, okay? But being aware that you're in one of those, when a lot of the because of the nature of our business, a lot of our trade shows happen in quote unquote tourist traps. So you have to also be aware of that. Yes, we're there we're there to have fun, and it's overall it's fun. But you also need to remember that unless you want to, like either for a lot of us, go home and find your bags packed on the front porch waiting for your ass when you get home, or you come home to an eviction notice, you need to keep in mind that all that money that you just made, or all that potential money that you just made, you need to take that shit home, and you need to, you need to pay your bills with it. I can't tell you how many horror stories I've heard of people being like, well, yeah, I did sell out at Vegas, but problem was I got shit-faced, and then I decided to go to the tables, and I lost half to 3/4 to all of what I made at the trade show.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Or they make the mistake of, the trade show's over, and if you sell out, it just, like you were saying, it brings up really good points. If you sell out immediately, what should you do? Should you continue to stay? Or should you close up shop, and should you go home? There's all these, there's also things too, if your work starts moving really quick, you need to be prepared to look at buyers and say, okay, well, because I only have a certain, examples. I only have a certain amount of examples of this wood. It's usually common practice of if a piece sells, it has a little sold sticker that gets put on it, or somebody puts out a business card, or it's something to basically show people not only where the piece will wind up, but also that the piece is no longer available. But the point being is that even if you do really, really well at the trade shows, you don't want necessarily all your work going walkabout, because then the next thing you know, people are going to come up to you the rest of the trade show and be like, well, what do you make? Can you show me some of the stuff you have? And you can't, because it's all gone and sold, and you have no more examples of your work.
Yep, exactly.
So, and you're right, and it's a learning, it's all a learning process, and figuring out how to do certain things, and figuring out, because, and it's like we talked about before, too, the trade shows aren't cheap. It's scary taking that leap of faith, because essentially that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it's a leap of faith that you're going to make the investment of what you're putting in back.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't, and that isn't what was going on, people wouldn't do trade shows because they wouldn't make money. It would just be a waste of money.
Yeah, exactly. And I know when I do trade shows, like I shouldn't say trade shows. I should guess more like craft shows and art shows and stuff here in town. If it costs me $150, the first $150 I make, I put that shit in an envelope and put it to the side, so I know I at least broke even. Got my money back.
Well, dude, and you're right. And it's important. It's just, it's like it all goes back. I think it just all goes back to a balance too, man. For the longest time, I never realized, and this is probably one of the best pieces of advice or wisdom that I have. For the longest time, I never understood when my dad would say to me, listen, when you sell a piece, okay, and you get paid for that piece, not only do you have to pay the business, okay, but you have to pay the business for the use of the materials, and then you have to pay for the future use of the same materials.
Yep.
So, because what I never understood, and it's seriously, but it took me like 8 years to figure this out, and a lot of tears, blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. I never understood that when I would just pay the business back for what I had used, I was bankrupting the business. In essence, what I was doing was I was only keeping myself afloat. There's never any way to keep yourself ahead or to actually get ahead. The only thing I was doing was keeping my mouth above water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude, and that's why I did a shows a couple back talking about like a generic percentage of like when you you get paid $100 for something, and then you break it into thirds, but you break it into 30%. So you have like 30% for your pay for yourself, 30% for material cost, and then 30% for taxes. Now, taxes should only be 15 to 20% the most, but still put that 30% aside just to have it. And then you have like this 10% floating around, so you take that 10% and you stick it somewhere, and that's your retained earnings for down the road. So like when Glass Alchemy has this huge fucking sale that we all missed out on recently, you have a chunk of money in there to spend on glass.
Well, and you bring up a good point too. Or what happened to me recently a year ago was the SC3, the Paragon you've been using for 12 years, decides all of a sudden that it's going to take a shit on you, and you need to do a complete refurb on it. But you realize at the same time that, okay, it's going to cost me a third of a brand new kiln that I could put like 5 of these inside of to fix this kiln. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get your equipment back up to running order, because you should. But I did the math and realized that at that point, upgrading to a bigger kiln was actually a more financially, responsible thing to do, as opposed to, and then because what that allowed me to do was that it then allowed me to make the money so that I could then fix the other kiln, and then it gets either put on a shelf or, because shit breaks, equipment breaks, it was like you were saying, that extra 10%. You might not have, the $40 to call Blast Shield to get an extra reamer. You might not have that, whatever. It can be anything. And most times it is something very small and stupid. But most times I would say it probably comes down to I would say that the biggest reason, or at least my guess would be the biggest reason for a shop going dark at any given time would be because people forgot to set aside the cash for gases.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, and it may only be $30 or $15 to get that, propane tank filled or that K tank filled. But when you don't, when you're looking at a negative balance on your bank account, that $30 all of a sudden means a lot.
Yeah, it's huge. I've been there,
Oh, yeah, man. I think that I once got told by an older guy, he basically said, he's like, if you can make it in our industry or pretty much any industry, if you make it to your 50-year anniversary, whether you've been struggling those 5 years or not, if you can actually manage to keep the doors open for 5 years, the likelihood that you will actually succeed the business itself goes up something like 65%.
Oh, yeah, it's huge, man. Most businesses fail in the first 3 years. And then you get to the 5-year point, and I think the percentage, I want to say the numbers, I think it's 65% of all businesses fail in the first 3 years, and then of those that are left, 85% fail in the next 2 years, and then after that, there's this small percentage, and then with the ones that survive, it takes time, but you eventually become successful monetarily, and and that's what I think is fun for those that are now, the ballers out there, quote unquote, that are making the cheese in the industry, the rest of us that are catching up, even though we've been in the industry for, I've been in this industry for almost 17 years, I'm at a point now where, okay, I'm going to go out there and really push it, make the best shit I can make, whatever. But we're at a point now to where, with the way laws are changing and the industry is changing and the business mentality is changing, we're set. We're skill set wise, we are prepared for this next happening, where we're going to put our big boy pants on and start being... You're absolutely right. We're standing there. We're standing there waiting for we're sitting there waiting in the ocean for that next big tsunami. But it's all right because we already know how to surf and we have a board that's capable of handling the wave underneath us already. Exactly. So it's, and you're right, man, because it's a really good point too, because you do have to, it's kind of like you were saying, dude, I watch Project Runway. One of the reasons I watch Project Runway is, for one, because I think it's a cool show, and I don't care who the fuck knows that. I like the show. Mm-hmm. But two, it's because it's keeping yourself relevant. It's learning, like you were saying, it's learning what the new trends are. It's learning what the new hot colors are. It's watching the episodes where they go to New York Fashion Week, and, it's watching... and paying attention to Fashion Week and knowing what's popular this upcoming season and what's popular this upcoming year and what the new colors are going to be. And all of this shit is extremely important in order to keep yourself relevant, because in our industry, that's what keeps you fed. Yeah, exactly. What keeps you fed is being relevant, because as soon as you become irrelevant, you go by the wayside. Yeah. I agree, dude. It's kind of going back to the show from today that I put out. It's referring back to my childhood growing up and watching WWF and now WWE, and I still watch it to this day. And I've been watching it, not every day or consistently for years, but I still tune in. And I've always enjoyed the character development and watching characters change their, trying to really find their way into the industry until they get the big pop and become a champion or whatever. But it takes your having to evolve your work, trial and error, figure it out, get your techniques down, get your spot down, be able to work with other people in the process. Wrestling is it's a fucking male soap opera, ballet dance in the fucking ring. Glass blowing with other artists is the same damn thing. I can't tell you how many times I've seen hot shops where it's like this choreographed, chaotic fucking mess, but it's well, I shouldn't say choreographed, it's an unchoreographed, but because of the experience of each individual artist, they know how to move in a shop. That's one of the things where, with having my new studio, we have new people coming in. We're having to teach them how to have shop etiquette, how to work in the shop. I'm actually, next Wednesday's show I'm putting out is going to be all about shop etiquette. Things that I'm getting refreshed on because I've been out of the studio environment for so long myself. But that being said, well, still, and you're right, though. Even something as simple as asking somebody, hey, do you mind if I stand here and watch you, as opposed to just standing there and watching them. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude. But you got to pay attention to the trends. You got to pay attention to everything else out there in the world that's going on, not just inside of our little bubble. To really expand yourself to a point to where you could be that next level, to be the next relevant artist. Because, like, you know, it's a new flavor every week, which I like because I am being introduced, and we all are as a community are being introduced to somebody we didn't know about. I mean, I can't tell you how many times on Instagram, dude, I see somebody, you know, repost someone's picture, or another artist that I follow post a collab with another artist that I never heard of, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? And I go and look at their page, and I'm completely blown away by how amazing their work is. I'm like, why haven't I heard of this person before, male or female? You know,
right?
It's incredible. And not only pipe makers, but other, you know, furnace workers. Like when I first saw freaking Ethan Windy's work for the first time, I was like, who the fuck is this? And then I started getting
and then when I found out that it's actually Danny White, and I was like, oh, okay.
But the kid,
which is also funny too.
He's incredible
because I think that all of us. I've talked to a lot of younger glassblowers about this. A lot of them ask me, like, why do you go by Josh Bailey's glass? You know, why don't you go right? Because, dude, we used to have I mean, we went by, you know, we were La Pantaloni Fantasia. We were the fancy pants.
Hilarious.
But yeah, dude, I mean, but eventually I think you just go full circle and you just start going back to being referred to by your name. But, you know, it's you're right. And it's interesting because I think that social media has also had a really interesting effect on our industry to begin with. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been at a demo or I've been at an art, you know, a gallery opening or something. You know, it may just be a sesh, you know, where you're sitting around with other people and you will hear people say things, and I've heard this so many different times it's become kind of silly, but, you know, you hear people say things like, well, you know, Buck really blew up after, and I don't even know how to say the guy's last name, but like Dan Blitzkirian or whatever.
Oh, yeah, with the chandelier thing.
Yeah, with the whole chandelier thing and how he bought one of Buck's pieces supposedly in like a drug-fueled, or like a drug-induced coma. Right, and then how it ended up being this crazy PR thing for Buck, right?
Yeah.
But I've heard people say it's funny how Buck blew up after that guy bought his piece, which is hilarious for me to hear because I want to look at people when they say that and be like, well, you'd probably be pretty surprised at how much he had blown up previous to that. But
exactly. Huge.
You know, I mean, he was, in our industry, he's one of the absolute heavy hitters, and he was absolutely known before that shit happened. It's just, I guess, you know, I don't know, it's kind of like what you were saying. He just became more, like, publicly spread, I guess, would be, you know, a good way of putting it, or people became more publicly aware of his work.
Yeah,
due to the following that the guy had.
Yeah, I think social media kind of creates ignorance and like puts up the blinders in a lot of ways, you know, because people see things, they're like thinking it's completely current when shit happened like 10 years ago or whatever. You know, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it really is because, you know, it's just these are guys that we've always known. You know, they've been in our industry. You know, they are the big dogs and kind of things like that.
Yep. And
it's interesting because, you know, it's not until I guess other people deem it that they've made it. I mean, it's weird how, you know, certain people look at certain instances.
Yeah. Hey, I hate to interrupt you. Can you hear my dogs howling in the house?
Is that your dogs?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, my Oakley is our older one. He's like 2, and he's a husky, Aussie, and lab mix. And he was probably about 8 months old, I guess. Fire truck drove by the house, and he started howling from like the siren of the fire truck. But he was like gagging from like howling, like it wasn't quite a developed thing that he had. And then we got our puppy Maley. She's like 6 months now, and she's got this little bark that she does. But when she starts barking, he now howls, and he's developed this howling. And the two of these guys, they'll both will go on for hours in the house, howling back and forth. It's so fucking funny.
No shit, that's actually pretty funny, man. My Rottweilers, they didn't really develop them until they got older too. But it's kind of the same thing you were saying. They developed it as they got older.
Yeah, that's funny. Silly.
But it's definitely it's interesting, or it's interesting where our industry's going. Sorry about that, man. Like, one of the reasons that I was off the torch recently is I just had 13 teeth extracted, so now I have part of the the side effects of my disease is it attacks my teeth because they're made of the base of your teeth are made of the same thing that your bones and your connective tissues are and everything like that.
Uh-huh.
So it attacked my teeth too. So I was at the point where I had to have all my teeth yanked and I needed to have dentures put in. So I'm still getting used to talking with a mouthful of teeth that aren't mine.
Yeah, that's gotta be weird.
Oh, dude, it's weird as shit. It's weird as shit because you can't feel anything. You know, you can't feel hot or cold. Like, it's just, it's weird.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, so I know that it's one of the things that before, like, when we decided that we were going to start doing this morning, it's funny, man. I was like, oh, fuck, I got to wake up and I got to put my teeth in. I got to make sure that he can understand me, man. I don't want to be all, because otherwise, I imagine I sound all slurry and like I've been drinking really heavily.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, dude, this dude is shit, man. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning and this dude's already lit.
That's too funny. Yeah, hell yeah. Well, yeah, dude. So I want to get into you personally and your glass, like your hands you're doing, your style of work, and kind of what influenced your current line that you're doing now as well.
Well, to tell you the truth, it's a personal. It was like a personal hurdle of mine when I was younger, and because I was always more artistically inclined than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say I wasn't good at other stuff at school, because I was a fair student, but I was definitely, it was always more of a, if we were doing something art inclined, it's like a lot of us are, we didn't necessarily, don't worry about it, but we didn't necessarily need as much as a hands-on kind of, teaching when it comes to our art.
Mm-hmm.
And, but funnier than shit, when I was younger and I would do that, and I would draw and I would, do pastel work and all that other shit, I would never draw hands. Like, the hands would either always, like, be in somebody's pocket or they'd be behind the back, because I was always horrible at drawing hands. It didn't matter if it was, like, cartoon style or realistic, and it was always one of those things.
Interesting.
It was always one of those things that really kind of bugged me. And when I came back to Blind Glass after I came out of my health hiatus, I was doing some work with my brother, and I decided we were doing one of his cyclopses, one of his full-body cyclopses, and we were trying to figure out what parts I was going to do and how we were going to mesh in my style with something that he was already doing. There was already like an established design that he was doing. And he was like, well, I don't know if you can do it. He's like, but do you think that you could try to build me a couple hands? And I remember when he asked me, I was like, shit, because I even in glass, I mean, I had done sculpting before, but the hands would always either leave me wanting, or I would never really know how to go about doing them properly. So, it was always kind of one of those things where I even have sculptures from early in my career where, they're finished up until the point of having hands. And then it's like, well, that glass sculpture got caught stealing, so they cut his hands off, so.
Yeah.
And it would just kind of stay unfinished. And I remember so basically it was kind of like a challenge. So I was like, well, maybe, and at this point in my career, I was like, well, maybe I have enough skill level and talent at this point that I think I know how to go about it and go about it in a different way than I maybe would have before. So I tried it, and I whipped out 2 hands, and at first I was like, I'm not really happy with the way they came out. And then I tried them again, and instead of having 2 fingers and a thumb, because we were doing a monster, so, luckily when you're doing creative like that, you don't necessarily have to be anatomically correct.
Right.
And so I put 3 fingers and a thumb, and I liked the way that it looked, and we put them on the piece, and I made a couple feet too, and and that was kind of the birth of my hands. And I've gotten asked before too why I don't put 5 fingers on them, and to tell you the truth, it's a really, really simple answer. They just don't look right to me in the style that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do more of a cartoony style as opposed to somebody like, let's see here, like Professor. Professor does it, dude, like, I'm extremely impressed by not only the hand rigs that he puts out, but also by the human hands pendants that he does.
Mm-hmm.
His fingers are so just delicate and detailed, and it's just, dude, I'm envious. Like, it's interesting, and that's another thing that I like about glass too, is that I can look at things that other people do, and even make in a similar type style. And I can see the beauty in what we all do. Instead of, getting a chip on my shoulder and getting pissed off because, we're all doing a variation of the same thing or something of that nature. Instead, I find that it's a better, to just be like, what reality is there's enough necks out there for everybody, and there's enough lungs out there for everybody to make whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't need the backbiting and, like the backstabbing and shit like that. And like we were talking about earlier, the purposeful undercutting and doing shit like that. It doesn't need to exist. It really doesn't.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
But so getting back to it. So, and then they kind of evolved. So, I personally, I really like Luda's style. That real, like, almost heavily Mickey Mouse kind of influenced glove type hand that he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy his work. I mean, there's so, and then basically, so the line kind of evolved. I started off. We kind of debuted the. We figured out, and this also took a lot of R&D to do the math to figure out the weight versus the pull on the magnet and everything else. And we basically figured out how to come out with a style of pendants that you could, detach them and attach them back to the bail.
Cool.
Pull them off and put them back on and shit. And it was. Yeah, it was. And so, I mean, there's still logistically, there were some problems,
Yeah. Hey, dude.
You ended up.
Can you be like 1 second, bro? I gotta get my dog to shut up. She's in there barking like crazy.
Oh, hell yeah, man. No problem.
Cool. Yeah, give me 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Just bring it back on the
oh, yeah, dude. It's so funny, man. I've got a little like chug, like a little Chihuahua pug mix, and then I've got like our full-grown Rottweiler, and the Rottweiler, man, he's quiet as shit. Like, he doesn't usually make noise unless there's a reason to make noise, but holy shit, man. My little Chug, he's a talker.
Yeah, I hear you.
Those little doggies, man,
Yeah, it's funny.
But, it definitely, oh, shit. Well, oh, yeah, we were talking about the hands.
Yeah.
So basically, the style kind of evolved from, there were some logistical problems with the magnets, and the logistical problems more so being that I felt too much like a vacuum salesman trying to, like, prove to people that the magnets were okay. And, I mean, at the same time, also trying to explain that, listen, this is more of a sesh-type pendant. This is not something you want to go out and, wear to the club, and you don't want to necessarily go slam dancing wearing a magnetic pendant. It is still just a magnet, guys,
Exactly.
So basically I kind of phased that out into a way of, incorporating the magnetic work in different ways. Instead having magnetic parts that are removable as opposed to having the entire piece be removable. So that was one way of doing that. And then they evolved even more so into kind of like we were talking about, trying to stay relevant, also trying to keep it so that not necessarily rewarding collectors, but trying to give your faithful customers more of a reason to collect certain items. One of the ways I found out to do that was by limiting certain series of the hands. But for instance, putting leaves on the ends of the hands, okay, or on the ends of the fingers, and then calling those the In Touch with Nature helping hands.
Hell yeah, cool.
And that way, I limit them to 10, and there's never a repeat on any of the color. Everybody, there's you get collectors that want to collect specific numbers, or you at least get collectors that want one from every series that you do.
Yep.
So, it was one more way to keep things relevant. It's also one way of keeping myself entertained and not feeling like I was plateauing on a specific design.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that I think that can happen even in more intricate work, one of the things that I think is it kind of inevitable to a certain extent is even something like my hands or right off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but when you make a specific style of something, even if every single one of them is pretty involved, is specific in its own way, you're still creating that specific style over and over and over again.
Yep.
So no matter what you're doing, you're just, and it's funny because it just goes how everything's full circle. Even though you think that you have kind of escaped the world of production, you really just find yourself doing a different form of production.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I call it high-end production.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like my Wise Guys. I have my low-end production version of them, then I have the high-end production, and then I have the one-offs.
And you're right though, and it's exactly that's a very good example, bud, because what it does is it shows that there's different levels, but essentially because you're keeping the design the same, because we're going off of the same base structure model, what ends up happening is that you have to do something to keep yourself so you don't feel like, your time is just droning by. You don't want to get up. You don't want to feel like you're getting yourself caught up in any sort of monotony or like you're plateauing. It's just, it's really, really detrimental to not only your emotional well-being, I found, but also to your creative process.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you feel like you're plateauing as an artist, then your work's going to reflect that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. You got to get that refresher. Because there's so many times, man, where I'm in the middle of making something, and I'm like, fuck, I get this crazy idea, and I'll just go ahead and just draw a picture or take a note real quick, just so that I have a document of that so I don't forget it,
Oh, that's one of the things that I would suggest for everybody to do, whether you're new and or old in the business. If you don't have some type of journal that you keep, whether it be literally, like you were saying, like it could be a pile of scrap notes. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But something, because you're always going to come up with an idea. And for years, I wouldn't write it down. And then later on, sure as shit, I would forget the idea.
Oh, yeah.
And, you always kick yourself because you never really come back to it because you can't remember it.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things, it's like we were just talking about, one of the things that's really smart to do is, even if you can't draw, sketch out like a little stick figure of it, or, like a real base design of it, even if it only makes sense in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that you write some corresponding notes so that you don't come back to it at a later date and be like, what the hell was I trying to say there?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, it's so important, man. Yeah, I always preach consistency, but also keep a journal. And it, because you get these ideas. We're all creative spirits, and we all get these harebrained light bulb moments, and it's like, man, either I can stop what I'm doing and make it, or I can just take a note and come back to it and make sure, though, that I come back to it. Like, almost got to schedule that appointment to come back to that piece.
Well, see, and it's also one of the reasons, too, why I would, like, dude, I can't stress enough. It's why if you have the ability to learn from somebody or anyone, like, if the opportunity comes up, you know, one of the things that I was really, really bad at when I was younger is I would get offers to come out to people's shops. I would get offers, you know, to come out and learn. And I guess a certain part of me always felt like they were hollow offers, or it was kind of just like the thing that you would do. You know, it's like the nice thing to do.
Right.
But then I found out the older that I got, you would meet back up with these people later in life, and they would ask you, you know, how come you never actually came out? And then you come to realize that, holy shit, that offer was actually genuine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was only because of my own neuroses that I chose not to take advantage of it. And it's, you know, if you can take a class, you know, if you can somehow manage the funds, you know, I know a lot of the time some of the classes are a bit pricey, but, you know, when you really consider what you're paying for, it's absolutely worth it. You know, it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
man.
I mean,
yeah. Hell yeah.
Reading books, you know, getting old journals, you know, reading older, because there's a lot of techniques too that, you know, kind of like you were talking about. There's a lot of hot shop techniques too that transfer over. You know, there's a lot of techniques that you use in metal. You know, working glass and working metal is extremely similar, not just because one is very close to the other in, like, you know, the crystalline structure and, you know, the tensile strength and everything else, but just the actual, you know, just how you go about it,
yeah,
you know, just the actual process.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I get all the time people at work over at Disney. Is that acetylene you're using? Like, no, fucker, it's oxygen and propane. It's not acetylene. And a lot of times it's funny too, because the guys that ask me that are like beginning welders, so they really aren't really welders, but they come across as being welders, you know. Cause they're like, oh yeah, we use that same torch at work, but we use acetylene. I'm like, there's no way in hell.
You're all then you don't use the same torch, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, you trust me, you're not running acetylene through this torch.
I know, it's so funny.
It'd be like, you'd have a problem, bud. Trust me, you'd have a problem.
Yeah, because then I get to I have to explain to them how chemical composition of the fuel will fuck with the glass. It's too hot. You know, like I get into the whole description. But it's the same thing, man. It's just, you know, it's just being in the environment, never being in the environment, and seeing it for the first time. You know, that's my favorite thing with going to the studios and visiting artists is just I love seeing shop setups. And for the longest time, it was a coveted thing. Like this your shop was the way you set up. You know, I remember years ago. I'm not going to mention his name, but I had an offer to go to California and go hang out in a shop for a couple days. But he wanted to charge me like $1,200 just to walk in the fucking door of the studio, because he knew I would then see the way his stuff was set up and his equipment he had and, you know, whatever. And I completely understood that. I couldn't afford it at the time to do that. I still today wouldn't do that. But the fact of the matter is today's time is way different. And like these classes that I've taken, I've only taken really actually paid for 2 classes in the 17 years I've done this. But they were recently, and they were both like, I'm so glad I did them. Like, I got to see how these cats work together, how they worked individually, what tools they used. Like, if there were tools that they were using that they used a lot, I made sure I went on my phone and went to Mountain Glass and fucking ordered it if they had it in stock. You know, just so important. So, you know, it's the continuous.
Well, it's kind of like a Sophietta.
Right.
It's kind of like a Sophietta. I had made my own Sofiettas for years out of 12-7, and I never, ever, ever had actually seen the benefit of, because I had never seen like a Venetian style Sofietta. I had never seen one even in the hot shop. And the first time I actually saw one being used, and then like the actual benefit to having something that was a professionally made tool. I remember I went home that very same day and was like, okay.
Yep. Time to step it up.
You know, and you're right, man. It's and seeing that, and it's true too, because you don't realize, you know, like even the, you know, a lot of people think that like the ground joint tools that we're using, especially the plier one, but like the plier version finishing tool.
Yep.
I think a lot of people probably think, at least in our industry, they probably assume that that's some new tool because they've never seen it before. But in reality, it's just, a variation of a wattle or of a wine bottle, neck maker that it's,
Yep.
it's just, and it's one of the reasons too, I think that scientific glass blowers usually get a kick out of like artistic Boro, like Piper kind of world, because I've noticed we all have a really bad habit of saying things like, look at this new technique I figured out.
Right.
And it's funny because what they forget to say, and I'm guilty of it too, is we forget to say, look at this new technique that, look at this technique that's new for me,
Yeah, exactly.
that I just figured out.
Yeah.
Because even when it comes to, percolation and, filtration techniques and, draining techniques, and, you really want to be good. If you really want to be good and you really want to be innovative, get some time with some scientific glass blowers. Go learn at the hands of some scientific glass blowers. And then come back and bring that into the Boro world as far as like the pipe making world, if you want to try to do something that's truly innovative.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why Quill was successful at, with his world, because of his having his scientific schooling and then actual working in the field for a couple of years, getting the ins and outs of it. It's cool stuff.
Well, dude, and then you look at guys like Evil. You look at guys like Steve, who wrote Evil Empire.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, he was like a scientific course worker for 20 years before he ever, And I mean, look at the designs that he comes with. So like, those collabs that he was putting out with Ghost. I know that they only did like 33 of the tubes, and I always forget the name of it, but it's the circular function of your ear. It's like the circulium or something like that, or can't remember what the damn word is. But the type of the type of perk, like the type of function on the pieces that they were making was ridiculous. It's like these two turbine perks, and they pull perfectly and see. And that's the other thing too. That's also like being able to find the beauty in anything. You look at pieces of work that are scientifically made, or where they're taking scientific, function, and they're putting it into the pipe world. People don't understand. It's like all those holes are exactly the same size for all those tubes to pull exactly the same equally, and everything is perfect. The measurement of the tubing, the length of the tubing, the diameter of the tubing, it's all the same. That's why it's so impressive. And I think a lot of the time people lose sight of that, because it's like being an armchair quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
They'll sit there and, and I'm guilty of it too. You sit there and you rip apart somebody's work. You might even be doing it privately, and you might even only be talking about it in your head. But reality is most times if you were to really be introspective and look at it, it's probably just envy and sour grapes because we can't do the technique.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. So true. Hell yeah, dude. Well, yeah, man. Well, I could sit here and chit-chat with you all day, dude. But in order to...
I feel you, man. We've probably been on for almost 3 hours, I figured.
Yeah, it's like we're at 2:10 right now, which is fine.
Yeah.
I just got a couple things I have to get done before 2:30. I guess it was 1:40 now. Yeah, so let's break real quick and take a minute to thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back and get the lightning round going.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. It is said that at the very moment the sun sets below the horizon, a flash of green light appears called the green flash. This unique occurrence happens daily, but only seen by a few. Green Flash Glass chose this name to symbolically represent the unique beauty, simplicity, and good feeling experienced when using their products. Unique to the experience at sunset. Uniquely relaxing. GreenFlashGlass.com. All right, man, we're back. So, so let's get on this lightning round. And the lightning
All
round.
right, sounds good.
Yeah, dude. Fuck yeah, it's fun. It's consists of a half dozen or so questions. Just need 30 to 60-second answers, and we can expound upon them if you'd like. And if you want to pass on one or two, you can. But I prefer at least to get some sort of answer out of it from you. And,
okay.
So the very first question I'd like to ask is if there is any living glass artist that you have not worked with yet. Who is it and why?
Ooh, shit. Oh, damn, man. That's kind of like, your celebrity crush. Probably Cowboy. And the reason I would want to work with Chris is, honest to God, man, I really find the man just extremely inspirational as far as not just an artist, but also as a family man. I think I think he's very inspirational in the fact of, how to have a good balance. I like the fact that, on his page, he puts up pictures of his wife and his boys and, how they go fishing. And I like that it's not just glass. I like that he involves us in his life, and I find that it's one of those things where it should be cherished. It's a very personal thing for him to share, and I appreciate that sort of thing. So
yeah.
And just because of his skill level, man. I mean, he's just phenomenal.
Yeah, he definitely was a kind of one of those cats that put a lot of technique that we use nowadays. He's one of the old guys that was first starting to do them and figuring the shit out for all of us.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. There are definite godfathers in our industry that genuinely deserve nothing but respect from everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. So if you could describe the sound of glass cracking in one word, what is it?
Like my own technique?
Yeah, whether it's an emotional sound or the actual physical sound.
I would say that I probably, I know that I could push the bounds more when it comes to, being a little more artistic. Maybe, I guess I'd probably like to maybe call in maybe a little more of the social, economical and political status in my work. But I would say probably I'm looking for more of an emotional response. So probably emotional style. Like it's just, does that answer the question? Or
yeah, I think you actually misheard me, but it's okay. That was good shit. I definitely got where you were going, and I think that's interesting because I want to incorporate that in future shows of getting a emotional perspective of what you put into your work, in a sense, type of thing.
Yeah, because again, it's not. I don't expect my hands to provoke that much thought,
Yeah.
But I do like, I don't know, man. I like to think that I make stuff that I think is really cool for me. I try not to, and that doesn't mean that I don't play to the audience as well, because we all do. But I also try to at least get a part of me. I guess it's. I'm not really into that. I guess just to expand a little bit on it. I prefer personally my own personal aesthetic. I prefer pieces that have really, really, really clean lines, really defined shape. It's probably why I'm so attracted to the Venetian style. And I think that adornments can be put on work, but I think that sometimes it can, you can lose the overall beauty of a piece if there's too much adornment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And that's not to say that, don't get me wrong, that's not to say that I don't see pieces that, where almost every square inch of the piece is covered, that I don't look at that piece and I can't see the beauty, I can't find the beauty in that. That's not to say that. It's just to say that I think it's the aesthetic of the cleanliness, I think that would bring me back. So, And when that happens, I think I try to bring that into my own work a little, and try to put myself into that a little more where, even if it's a smaller piece, I like straight lines. It's probably why I love Encalmo work so much, to tell you the truth. Because there's not, to me, there's personally, nothing shows skill more than somebody like, than somebody like Doug's work, than DZ's work. I mean, his Encalmo work, the amount of lines, him, Cameron Burns, a lot of the guys out there, they're really, really, really pushing the bounds. I mean,
Bella G's fucking his work's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like when you take the time to put over 100 different sections in a piece, and then the individual line work, and it's like Bella G. It's the same kind of thing. And then when you can work that prep and keep your line straight and everything else, it just shows that immense amount of talent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, man, fuck yeah. The original question was if you could describe the sound of glass breaking or cracking in one word, what is it?
Ooh. Painful.
Yeah, okay. In the studio, do you watch TV or listen to the radio? Or both?
Oh, TV for sure.
Oh, yeah. What are your top 5 favorite colors?
I'm a cartoon or movie guy.
Nice. Yeah, I was about to ask you that, what you're into. Hell yeah. So what are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
Ooh, top 5. Clear, even though I know people would argue that that's not a color. That's definitely on the list, just because of how versatile it can be.
Hell yeah.
Let's see. 4 more. What do I use? I'm trying to think in my palette, like, what I probably go back to the most. Personally, I'm a real big fan of amber purple. I know a lot of people aren't necessarily when it comes to the actual work. But I think that the variation that you can bring out in amber purple is really, really beautiful. Plus it again, I think it speaks more so to the skill level, because if you know how to pull out certain colors out of amber purple, you really know your flames. You also really know your annealing schedules and your temperatures. So that's probably one of the reasons why that color comes to mind. I'm not a real big. I do like the transparents. Don't get me wrong. But because of supply and demand being what it is, I think, and again, this is just one of those underlying factors, a side effect of more people entering into our industry, the industry being more popular, therefore the materials being at a higher demand. I do think that in certain cases, the quality of the materials have kind of gone backwards. Yeah. Whereas there was a long time where it seemed like really, really bubbly colors, you wouldn't really see them anymore. They had seemed to have, it seemed to have kind of worked its way out, because it would cause problems ultimately in the initial construction or in the final construction. So, and now one of the things that I've noticed is, especially with a lot of the hype colors, is you'll get them, and as far as from a working standpoint, they're just, I wouldn't say that they're top quality. I guess it's probably what I'm getting at.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I think it's the whole difference between getting a small batch of beer compared to, like, mass producing it by the millions of gallons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And whereas, whereas a lot of the times, I think one of the reasons that a certain color or a certain batch might get deemed to be turned into frit could be because that specific batch was impregnated with whatever, some sort of contaminant. It had too many air bubbles in it, whatever. Because one of the things that I've noticed recently is, especially a lot of the crayon colors or a lot of the cadmium-based colors, you got to use the frit, and it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how soft you go at it. It doesn't matter how much you pussyfoot it. You're going to burn the shit out.
Yeah,
and
too many exposed edges.
I think you know what I mean? Have you experienced any of that?
Yeah, with some stuff. I use a lot of acid yellow for it on the surface even,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't come out too bad. It's not always easy to completely blend it in, so I'll do more, inside out type encasement to work the color.
Well, see, and I think too that just goes to show experience as opposed to anything else, because we know that if you really want the color, for multiple reasons. For one, workability. Two, the ultimate finished product. I tend to think that sometimes when you encase it, or when you do inside-out frit work, it looks better as opposed to if you're just doing the frit work on the outside.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Hell yeah, dude.
But,
You got two colors now.
So amber purple, clear. I really like Agua Azul, just because it's a fun color. One of the things that I would recommend to some of the younger kids or the younger people, is play with overlays. Mix the two different colors. Fuck, man. I personally have a color wheel next to my table, so that that you can I can actually see which colors technically are going to look good with other colors, because a color wheel will actually tell you that too. There are certain colors that should be paired up with other colors because it's just going to naturally look good to the human eye.
Yeah, I agree completely.
So we got amber purple, Agua Azul, clear. Let's see, probably white. Just because, again, it's versatility. You can either overlay it with other colors, you can fume it, do anything with it. And then my last favorite would probably be, and it was a unique, so I have a very limited supply, and a lot of people aren't even aware of the color, but it's Green Goddess. And it's like a mystery adventuring offshoot.
Interesting.
But if you work the color correctly, if you work Green Goddess correctly, and you work it in the right flames and you anneal it at the right temperatures, you can actually get a genuine gold hue, and this purple and gold hue that will get brought up to the top of the color, and it has this sparkle green underlay, and it's just,
wow, sounds amazing.
In my personal opinion, it's just fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, sounds like it. Huh, interesting.
But it's definitely, it's one of those colors where it's because it was an offshoot, it wasn't really around for that long, so if you got a hold of some of it, you did. If you didn't, you did.
Yeah. Huh, interesting. So our last and final question for you, dude, is if you were stranded on an island, and the island could be whatever island you'd like, and there was a glass studio that had your gases, a kiln, and your torch, what 5 items would you bring?
Ooh. Okay, so tools and shit aren't a problem, or tools are they're what you're talking about.
Yeah, whatever you're going to create, what would you bring in a sense, or how would you make the situation that you're in, your environment-wise, work for you?
Okay.
With those 5 items.
Oh, shit. Well, I guess one of them would just be a knife.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I actually use a knife quite a bit in my work. They come in handy for all kinds of things, for, keeping a part from touching another part, to putting in a detail line, to, knocking off a little piece of stray clear that you picked up on a piece by accident. A reamer. Are my materials there, or do I need to include gas or glass in the 5 too?
Whatever you got to make, dude. All you have is gases, a kiln, and your torch.
Oh, shit. Oh, damn. Well, then I might not bring... Damn. I don't know. I might not bring any tools because if I'm on an island, can I just fashion my own wooden tools and keep them wet with salt water?
Exactly. I would think so.
Okay, well then I'm not going to waste any of my time with my tools then because, fuck it, dude. They've been working hot glass with soaked wood and shit for years. So, yeah, I probably wouldn't fuck around with that. Shit, man. Shit, this is hard, man. Like, I don't know. Like, does a pallet count as one item?
You can bring a pallet of glass. Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right, okay. I have to bring a pallet of glass, obviously. Shit, we'll just say on the pallet that I'll just call the manufacturer and tell them to put a couple boxes of 50, 32, 12/7. Got to have 7 mil. Probably going to want some rod that's a little bigger than 7 mil just in case. I usually go anywhere between 10 to 12. I also find that 3 and 4 mil comes in handy for certain things. Okay, so we'll just call that one item. I know I'm cheating.
Hey, it's all good. We'll let it ride.
Damn, man, that's hard. Blow hose, I guess, because, or at least a connector. I mean, I guess I could make a blow tube out of a piece of bull tail. Like, I'm really trying to think of, like, real answers that would work. Like, shit, man. Probably going to need at least a reamer, I would assume. Probably a reamer. Damn. Oh, something to light the torch. Shit. So, probably a magnifying glass in that case, because the bitch, you're going to run out of fuel eventually, and even a striker, you're going to wear down the flint.
Yeah, I guess you could go hunting on the island and look for some rocks or some shit. Make like a caveman.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, technically, you could replace a striker. You could probably find a flint. That's actually a good point. Well, I guess that's if the rocks on the island are right. If they're not, you're fucked.
Yep.
But yeah, and then a pair of goggles, man. I mean, you gotta have goggles. I don't want to fucking burn my eyes out.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was hard, man. That was literally the hardest part of the interview by far.
Good, dude. That's what I like about it. Like Coyle, his was kind of funny when he came on. He says, "Well, first thing I'm gonna do is bring a G4. So when I'm done working, I can just fly home." I was like, "Yeah, dude, that's hilariously perfect."
Damn, yeah. I never thought about that.
Yep. Like I got my own thoughts and stuff of what I would do for myself, but I'm gonna save that for some time down the road to share. But that's the fun part about it. But the fucked up thing too is like for probably several shows, everybody was forgetting their glasses. And then Steve was the first person to say glasses, and he said it as the very first answer, which was good.
No shit.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, dude, I would have almost forgotten that shit. If it wouldn't have been my last thing, I almost forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, typically it's the last answer for those that say it. And then I always give them shit if they don't. So.
Yeah, you're like, damn, dude, you almost fucked up, man. You would have almost been fucking screwed. You wouldn't have been able to do shit with nothing.
Yep, exactly. Hell yeah, man. So before we let you go here, if you want to give our audience, the newbies and the OGs and whatever out there, anybody inspiring to be a glass artist, any parting piece of advice, and then also where we can find you in cyberspace.
The only piece of advice that I would give is if you are new, before you dive in head first, try to find somewhere where you can get some time on a torch. Try to find somewhere where you can actually get some torch time. You might find that it isn't for you. And that's not to try to discourage anybody. It's like any other industry. It's like, especially like any other trade. Mm-hmm. The tools of our trade tend to be very expensive, and as they should be. It's what we make a living with. But you don't want to find yourself the next thing you know, like $5,000 to $10,000 in debt in gas and, glasses and tools and, and glass and materials and whatnot, and really decide 3 months, 4 months, a year down the road that it's just not for you. So that would be my advice for anybody on the, for new. Any veterans, shit, man, we're all the same. Keep doing what you're doing. It ain't easy. Just keep fighting the good fight, man, because hopefully things will just keep getting better for our industry. And remember, the people that are paving the way for us as far as financially goes, the people that are the heavy hitters, that, that are making, they're the ones that are plowing the road before us. They're the ones that are making it so that we can all make a sustainable living in this, in this career choice. So keep that in mind. Try not to let it get you down, because sometimes people, see the prices that other people are getting, and they allow it to really affect their well-being. And just keep in mind that the prices that they garner are just making it capable for you to garner the same price or a similar price at a later date.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Really respect the hard work that they're putting into it. Don't take anything for granted in this industry. And by that, I mean, even if you see somebody doing production work, don't think that their job is any less easy than your job because you're out there trying to make, full sculptural, full color pieces. We're all in this together, man. And if we're going to continue to stay at the community, and we're going to continue to put out that overall community vibe when we're together in the public eye, it really truly needs to be that way. Give help where you can give help. If you see somebody that's struggling because they're out of glass and you're sitting on a huge stash, send them some glass so they can get back on their feet. If you see a fellow artist and their auctions are doing that well, put a bid on their auction. Try to we need to perpetuate our own industry as much as we do our careers. And you need to help where we can help. And if you do have criticism, make sure it's constructive criticism. You don't need to try to tear somebody down because of something that they're making, even if it isn't necessarily up to your quote unquote level of par. There's always something constructive you can offer somebody, even if you want to tell them ultimately that you don't really like their piece. There's a constructive way of saying that. You don't have to be an asshole about it.
Exactly. Yep. Hell yeah, man. And yeah, dude, that's fucking well said, bro. That's awesome. Can you, before we forget, to tell us where we can find you out there in the world of cyberspace?
Oh, yeah, shit, man. Pretty much just at Josh Bailey's Glass on Instagram. And if you want to email me, have any questions, anything like that, want to get a hold of me for anything further, you can get at me at the same address. It's joshbaileysglass@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or to point anybody in a helpful direction or to get you set up with an order, whatever you want to do.
Hell yeah. You want to spell it for us, dude, real quick?
Sure.
No, you spell it.
Oh, I'm sorry, bud. Jesus Christ, bud. Holy shit. Part of it is because I'm walking around and I think you're cutting in and out and I didn't hear you all the way.
Oh, my bad.
Right.
Yeah. Spell it.
All right. It was nice talking to you. It was great talking to you, man. And everybody else, I hope you had fun listening. I hope that there's something that you could take away from what we were talking about that's useful. And if not, I hope you at least got a couple laughs out of listening to us talk. So,
Yeah,
have a great day, everybody.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it was fun, dude. We covered the spectrum for sure, and had to bring it back on and do this again because there's lots of areas we could get into conversations and get pretty deep, not finding.
Oh, yeah, man. Definitely, definitely where we could expound for, just on specific topics for a while longer. But, yeah, anytime you want me to come on and our schedules match up, I am more than willing to do so. I had a great time.
Hell yeah. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. We will talk to you all soon. Take it easy.
All right, everybody. Have a good day.
Peace. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.